pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Monday morning, welcome. First order of business to approve the minutes from June 10th as written.
I so move.
Second.
Thompson's moved, McCurry seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Move to authorize the vice to direct, move to authorize and direct the vice chairman to sign Coffee County payroll notice for Ryan Peterson, county attorney, summer legal intern, new hire, pay category step 5, wage $16.20, part-time, no more than 3 days per week, hours not to exceed 1,000, effective June 3rd, 2024.
I'll move.
McCurry moved.
I'll second.
Pete seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Move to authorize and direct the vice chairman to sign Coffee County payroll notice for Heidi Harris, planning and zoning administrator, commission transfer, pay category 35, step 22, wage $27.79, effective June 1st, 2024. It does not change her pay, it's just more recognizing she's been transferred to the direction of the commission.
I so move.
Thompson's moved.
Second.
Curry seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Move to authorize and direct the vice chairman to sign the grant letter of support to USD 243 New Daycare Center in Lebo, Kansas. They came in last week and talked about it, and here's just the letter.
Did they prepare this letter?
I believe so.
They
I
sent it to Angie, and then Angie printed it off for us.
Yeah, I just thought it was really well written.
Yes.
My comments. I'll move.
Thompson's moved.
I'll second.
Meat seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Move upon the recommendation of Knox County Weed Director to accept and direct the Vice Chairman to sign the KDOT contract county agreement to treat noxious weed. It is an annual deal.
Well, did he increase the pay on that this year? Well, I don't think we've seen any.
I don't think so. Still $45 an hour.
I'll move.
Curry's moved.
I'll second.
Meat seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. I'm pretty sure it's always been 45 now, and I don't think they've.
I think it may have increased a little bit here 2 years ago.
That could be true.
So,
Todd does a good job of taking care of all that
Yeah.
at the state, and they work together quite well, I believe, so.
Who made that motion?
McCurry?
I'm sorry, I
and Mead seconded, I think.
Yes.
got the second.
So that's
Just an
what they
annual.
pay us for
Mhm.
some areas that we spray for them.
Mhm.
Okay.
Basically, yes. That concludes miscellaneous motions. Ryan's up.
Oh, that's your one thing.
I like this one though.
See, I've heard mixed feelings, but
And just go with the positive.
I'm
Make
happy.
everybody happy.
That's right. That's for sure.
Some people don't like change.
Until they get used to it, you know. Just basically about the same as last week. They finished up most of that south half masonry. They're about halfway up on the south elevator. You've seen they start on the north stairwell. They'll be there, I'll probably till about the end of this week, on that stairwell and that north half and then they'll get started on that north elevator. I did get word that steel will be showing up. It's not confirmed yet, but it's looking like Wednesday. So we've increased that a couple days.
That's quicker than what you thought last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So that was good news at the end of the week last week. So hopefully by the end of the week you'll start seeing some of the steel go up on the south half.
Right.
But other than that, not too much going on out there. They backfilled that retaining wall in the south half last week. But other than that, the site work's just about complete till we get the building up and can dress that up. But other than that, it's pretty. Seeing more masonry go up.
Be done tomorrow, day, right?
Close. Or the day after.
You know, I was surprised really with my eye. Of course, it ain't as good as it used to be, I'm sure. But you know, when we was talking the elevation of the new facility being the same as the existing floor, you know, I was figuring by the time I got out there to the west, that would be way further to the ground than what it is. It's amazing.
Yeah, nobody really, I've heard a lot of people like, man, that building's tall. I was like, yeah. I said, once walls start going up, you really get a kind of an idea how big it's gonna be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's going good. Looks like we got good weather for the next couple weeks anyway. It's gonna be hot, but.
Well, that's, for me, I'd rather see that as opposed to raining every other day.
Absolutely.
Can't make any money when it's raining.
Yep, unless you work inside.
That's right.
We're still an agricultural county, so we do need, and I'm not being critical of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
We
Gotta
folded,
stop sometime, keep
You
your
went-
crops in even.
we
That's
folded.
right.
You went from all kinds of rain to now it's gonna dry up for a month.
Yeah.
Oh, now, knock that off.
But July is just around the corner.
It is. We just don't need it like last year.
No, we don't.
Yeah, yeah.
It needs to rain at least, once in a while.
We do.
Yeah.
So, you guys got any questions for me?
So,
All right, I appreciate
Lots
it.
of progress
Thank you.
out there.
You bet.
Thank you.
thanks.
Next is Ty Weeder. We will be, we'll have a schedule. Anybody's got something they want to throw in for a couple minutes, I guess? There's Ty right there.
Yeah.
I guess.
We're ready if you are, unless you need a break.
Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Pull out all my papers.
Yeah.
How you guys doing? Hey, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Busy. Crazy.
You at full staff?
Heck no. Trying to get attorneys to come to employ you is like pulling teeth anymore. Law schools will quit graduating enough kids that it's horrible.
Too bad.
You Casey on there and we'll probably be fishing.
That brand new law building up there at Washburn University, have you been into it since they?
Oh, at Washburn? I have not been into it.
That thing really looks nice on the outside.
It does. It looks much better than what they had before. Okay, I'm Ty Wheeler. I'm the managing attorney with Kansas Legal Service Emporia. As I've told you before, we are a not-for-profit law firm operating under the same rules as every other attorney up and down the street, except for, no, I've said this, we're not in it to make money. Some years we're way too good at that, and some years we break even. This last 2 years has probably been the hardest 2 years I've had at KLS, my 32 years being there. Biggest problem is staffing. We went through about 8 months where I was the only attorney in a career attorney office. That was difficult. That was a lot of 60-plus hour weeks. Just trying to keep up. I've cut back on doing a lot of the cases we used to do. I stopped doing varying appointments in Marion. I stopped doing Burlington City Court, all the municipal courts, because we just didn't have staff to serve them. Although James keeps talking me into taking a case here and there, and so I get stuck over here one Thursday a month at about 5 o'clock. And I don't mind it because I enjoy practicing for him. He's a good judge. Last year in Coffee County, we did 30 people. We represented 30 people. 14 of those were regular civil cases. 13 were court-appointed cases. Those are almost exclusively the ones in city court. We rejected 13 people, and that's a number I really don't like, because that's people who qualified for services, and we couldn't help them because of our lack of staff and financing. The year before, we did 37 representations, 16 civil cases, 18 city cases. As you can see, it's about the same numbers. And I did that with about 8 months of being alone in the office. I hired Brian Henderson, who's been working at the county attorney's office in Emporia. He's come to work to me, but he's already given his notice for the 31st of December. He's going to go be the new Chase County attorney. And I knew that when I hired him. He told me back in December when we were talking about hiring him that 1, he was frustrated working in the county attorney's office, and 2, he was going to be there for probably a year, which was our intention all along, but that helped. He's an experienced attorney with 20-some years of practice, and so I didn't really have to do much training. He picked up the load. I've got a new young man starting next month. His name is Nick Bello. He's from Emporia, grew up in Emporia, wants to stay in Emporia, and wants to work for us. That combination is hard to find. Mm-hmm. When I graduated law school in 1992, there were 230 of us in my graduating class. Last year, there were 97 from KU in their graduating class, about a little under half. And of those 97 kids, 95 of them had jobs before they took the bar exam. That means there were 2 people out there without jobs to go to. That was our pool of people we could hire from. It's hard to find somebody. We've made about 3 offers for people to take positions. One of them decided to be a stay-at-home mom. Found out she was pregnant again, and going to stay at home, take care of kids. Another one took a job with Kansas Legal Services, but in the Wichita office. And the Wichita office actually pays about $5,000 less a year, and he took that position. We were sort of considered hard to fill in Emporia, so there's a little bonus to come down. We've increased our salary to attorneys about $20,000 over the last 3 years. Our starting salary is up, to make us competitive, because before the county attorney's offices and everybody were poaching the heck out of us. I lost Molly to the county commission. I don't blame her for going there because Mark retired. Well, Mark stopped being the county commissioner, and Mike Halloran retired. So she went from being in my office to being the county commission, or the county counselor, with a significant pay increase. So, but it's just been so difficult. We do a lot of civil work in Coffee County. We did 14 cases, 3 divorces, 1 paternity, 6 PFAs, protection from abuse orders, guardianship, 2 expungements. We have a gentleman in Emporia who has come along and paid me $50,000 in soybeans to do expungements. He was so excited about he had an employee, he helped get an expungement. And it wasn't so much the work, being able to find a better job or anything. It was that the young man went from feeling like he was a criminal to feeling like he was a normal citizen again. And it really changed his attitude. So Richard called me up one day and said, hey, let's talk about doing expungements. So he came in 2 years ago, gave us $50,000 in soybeans, actually. That went to the Emporia Community Foundation, who wrote me a check for $50,000. And Richard said, spend 25 of that on expungements in Lyon County, in your area. Other 25 can be used anywhere in the state. I think we're on our 5th or 6th check from Richard now. We've done more expungements in the last 2.5 years than I've done in 32 years of working at legal services. At first, I didn't think it was really fulfilling work, but after hearing the stories of these people and how they've turned their lives back around, I'm actually amazed at what it's doing. We got people who I saw as sort of frequent flyers in the system, who went through, got their life clean, stayed out of trouble, got employment, worked on their education, things like that, have a really good life story, and they come back and tell the judge all about it, and the judge says, okay, fine, expungement. We've done a couple of those over here that Wade signed off on, and help people get their record cleared up so they can get a better job, have a better life, have a better attitude. We did one disability case in Coffee County. We stopped doing adult disability cases. I used to be able to come in here and tell you how many hundreds of thousands of dollars I made in adult cases. Well, we transferred those all to Topeka, Wichita, Kansas City, because that's where the hearing office is. And it's easier to do a hearing if you don't have to travel. And it saves down about 3 hours of me driving up and driving back to go do a hearing. And that's a significant amount of time on a case that you average about 10 hours in. Children's cases are much more difficult because you got to really go get the records. You got to communicate with schools, the doctors, that sort of thing. And we did 7 successful cases last year. So we got about $32,000 in benefits to Coffee County off that one case. I wish we could get more. We're trying to figure out how to get people to actually seek us out. We've advertised. We work with the DCF. We work with St. Francis, and we're trying to get more kids in because we know there are more of them out there. PFAs are probably the most important thing we really prioritize. If somebody comes to me and says they've got an domestic case of any type, divorce, paternity, PFA, and they go, well, yeah, I want to get divorced because my boyfriend is in jail and he's going to get out in about 3 years. I want to marry my new boyfriend. I'm telling them, no, go hire somebody. If they call up and say, hey, he's abusing me, he's abusing the kids, I think you might be perping on the kids, we're in a heartbeat. We'll go ahead and get the PFA done. And on several occasions, we've had cases where we get in and we figure out there's an estate there, that their marital estate is worth $2 million, and it's all in his name, but it's there. And I end up referring it to private attorneys and saying, hey, you can do this and get money out of it. I don't want to be working with $1 million estate. It's not what I do. Usually it works the other way. I get a phone call from a local attorney who calls me up and says, Ty, I got a lady sitting here in my office. She really needs a divorce, but she can't afford my retainer. And that's how they come to my office a lot of times. Hiring an attorney anymore is a real difficult thing. We've got attorneys probably averaging around $250 an hour for pay, and they're probably collecting a $2,500 to $5,000 retainer. And I don't know about you, but I would have trouble coming up with that right away tomorrow. There's one attorney in Emporia, I won't tell you who she is, but last time I heard she was charging a $30,000 retainer on a divorce. And it was getting paid, and people were lined up at her door.
She's pretty good.
She's very good, very aggressive. I enjoy her a lot, but sometimes I call her gasoline. If you put her in a case, she throws a little gasoline on that fire. But she and I get along really well. We try to get along with the private bar. I try not to compete with the private bar. If there's a case they want to be doing, I'm not going to do it. For example, on court appointments, I wouldn't be in Burlington City Court at all, except for I got called up by the judge and said, hey, please come help us. We can't get local attorneys to take these cases. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. You're doing a city court appointment and getting paid $400 a case. If you're efficient, that's good money. If you're not efficient, it's not good money. So it just depends on how you're doing it and what you're doing. But you can ask Wade. What we do as well as anybody. There's stuff we don't do very well. We don't sue people for money. Don't do malpractice. Don't do personal injury. Don't do any of those cases that, you see people advertising on TV for. That's not us. We're there to be the attorney of last resort. You guys have any questions?
What's going to turn the employment opportunities around?
We're trying to get our salaries up. That's one of the big ones.
That's the biggest issue.
One of them. And no professional people can be hiring people in Emporia right now. Just nobody wants to come to rural Kansas. I don't know how many attorneys you're down to in Coffee County, but a lot less than when I started. When I started, there were 46 practicing attorneys in Emporia. There are 19. That includes the 5 attorneys in the county attorney's office. And 3 attorneys in my office usually. So.
There's 5 attorneys in the county attorney's office.
Yes. Yep. They got a pretty good caseload. So, well, actually, right now there's 4 because they're an attorney short. And then Marcus is retiring. Amy is going to run for county attorney. Looks like it's unopposed. So, Amy Miranda will be our new county attorney come January, and Marcus is retiring. So.
Your request pretty much the same as last year, isn't it?
I think I requested $1,000 more.
Okay, that's good news.
I did that with all my counties. The price of gas, the price of getting people there, and the price of paying people to be there. You know, one problem with upping your prices a little bit, or upping your salaries a little bit, is it costs more. So,
in my opinion, he would be more than justified in requesting double what he's asking. I mean, the type of work that he does, that Kansas Legal Services provides to those who need those services, is that they're woefully underpaid, and for him to be able to compete with anywhere, especially with the number of attorneys that are out there, you know, county attorneys are dealing with the same thing, and they've had to up their entry-level wages to be able to compete.
if you're an entry-level county attorney in Finney County, Preston Law School, their starting salary is $100,000. It's amazing. You know, when I started, I was making $20,000.
See, is that part of, is Garden City in Finney County?
In Finney County.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're well out there, and I did a speech a while back where I was on a panel with a whole bunch of rural local attorneys, and we're talking about the difficulty to Washburn students about the difficulty getting people to come to rural Kansas. And the Finney County attorney made a great point. She said, listen, I work in Finney County, I make very good money for a county attorney, and she says, there's nothing to do in Finney County. There's not much lifestyle. But Finney County is an hour plane ride from Dallas, an hour plane ride from St. Louis, an hour plane ride from Denver. She said, you know, I go to work, I work 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then I take a long weekend, go to Vegas, go to Denver. And she goes, it's a great lifestyle. And that's one of the advantages of working in Finney County. She says, I have a 5-minute drive to the airport. So it makes travel easy. I appreciate your time. If you've got any people who have legal issues that you need to deal with, send them to me. If I can't figure out how we can help them, I can figure out who can help them besides us.
I know I suggest a lot of people
Yeah.
your way, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's
I appreciate it.
something really needed, in my opinion, really.
Okay. Good.
You want to have an expungement day here?
We just had one in Lyon County on the 5th, and we did a bunch of Coffee County cases that day.
Did you?
So you'll be getting some.
Good.
So, the clerks have asked us not to file them all on one day. For some reason, they get a little mad that, you know, last year we did the clinic, we had 52 expunges we did in one day. And this year, I think it was almost 40, 38, 39, something like that. And they asked us, file 4 at a time. And I'm like, why? She said, well, we got time limits on these. We've got to get paperwork filed and things entered in the computer within 5 days. And if you give us 50 of them, you know, I got to have people work around the clock on them. So, makes sense.
Makes sense,
Yep.
yeah.
So you'll be getting some, we batched them up.
Thanks for the update, Todd.
Thanks very
No
much.
problem, I appreciate it.
Thanks for what you do.
I like it. I wouldn't have been here 32
Much.
years if I didn't.
Very much.
Sounds like it.
So, I mean, there's a drawback, I don't get paid as much as somebody else. I mean, I got offered a job for close to $500,000 down in Wichita about 10 years ago at Martin Pringle down there, and they offered to have me on a 5-year partnership track. I'd probably be making over $1 million a year. I'm sitting here in Emporia Legal Services and having a great time.
You said you're talking to us, happy.
If I did not have to deal with personnel and I didn't really have to deal with budgeting, I would be extremely excited. We're having a big turnover in our accounting department. I know Coffee County sent out a form they wanted me to fill out. It was due today or due Friday, I can't remember which. I couldn't get my accountant to work on it. I'm gonna go back to the office, call my boss, and have him chew the accountant out. I'll get it to you this week.
Don't be too hard on him.
He's been hard on me. We've got a new boss. Matt Keenan came over from Chicardi Bacon in Kansas City, one of the big, white shoe firms. And, he came in with really high expectations of what would happen and getting people really fired up to work with KLS. And he's found out that trying to get people fired up about poverty law is a little harder than he thought. But, we went crosswise on a couple of issues, and he's very easy to deal with. You just gotta let him sort of relax and think about it.
Yeah.
And, he wants us to go out there and get there and fundraise money, and he was convinced when he came in that he could get the bar as a group to give us a whole bunch of money. They've given us a little more money this last year, but they haven't given us what he was expecting, so.
Well, thank you for what you do. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
SOS, Mickey Edwards. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us in today. We like to talk about what we do, so good to see you all. It's been a few years. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So I'm sure you're familiar with what we do. We have many programs that we serve victims and survivors of interpersonal violence, child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, and you're probably pretty familiar with what we do. We have our domestic violence and sexual assault program is Crisis Services. We have a shelter in Emporia, and we have an office here. Actually, Nicole is our Crisis Services outreach staff person, so I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about what she does.
Thank you.
So my job pretty much is coming in, helping victims with protection orders, going to court hearings, just being that emotional support person that they need. We do a lot of safety planning. We can help with local resources and if they need housing. Help with housing, like getting into rents, deposits, utilities, and stuff like that. I work closely with ECAN on a lot of that stuff. And just pretty much be there for them, help them through the process.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I'll introduce Mary Halloran.
Hello.
She's our Crisis
Hi.
Services Director. And then we have other programs that we serve, our survivors and clients through. We have a CASA program, which you have here. We serve 2 counties, not Coffee County, with our CASA program. You guys have the, actually, I'm not sure if they're serving right now, Coffee County. It's the Ottawa program, the 4th Judicial District, obviously. So they have 4 counties. We have a child visitation and exchange center, so when parents need that service in order to avoid their children seeing conflict during a child exchange, or if the parent has court-ordered visitation, they can come to our center. It's a family-friendly location with security. We've had no security incidents ever since the inception of that program, so it's been very successful. We've seen a lot of parents graduate out of that program. They may move from visitations to then exchanges to then being able to do that out in the community on their own. And we have a child advocacy center, which in our Coffee County office, we actually have an interview room where law enforcement, DCF can bring a child who needs that type of service to do as a forensic interview for prosecution purposes. But not only for that, we follow that family through the process, much like what Nicole does with the clients that she serves. We have a family advocate that helps that family kind of through the process and making sure that the family gets what they need, the resources they need, the child's connected to, mental health services, the family's getting, whatever support services they need. So those are kind of, in a nutshell, the programs that we have under the SOS umbrella. And that's probably what you already know all about, but one thing that I really like to share is kind of those success stories when I come out and talk to people, because sometimes that really kind of brings it home to people. So I want to share, we have an SOS supporter who reached out to me a couple of weeks ago to tell me that he ran into a client who happened to know that he was affiliated with what we do. He's not a staff person, but just a supporter. And that client saw him and approached him and said, I just want to thank you, and please let the people that you work with at SOS know how much their services have changed my life. She actually said, and this is a quote from him, that the support that she received, she now feels like she can go out into the world and make a difference in the lives of others. And she said she could not be where she is today without the support of her advocates at SOS and all that we've done to help her out. And she was really specific that she wanted him to pass along the message to all of our staff, like Nicole, and say that what you do makes a really big difference, because it's completely turned my life around. So now, that's not to minimize the work that she's put in, because it's not easy being in the position that she's in, and she's made a lot of progress herself. But that's just one of those stories of the thousands that we hear over the years of people whose lives have been changed because they were able to access services that we have under the SOS umbrella.
Awesome.
So, yeah. What questions do you have for us?
What's your budget request for this year?
Our budget request for this year. Oh goodness, I left that.
I
left that back. I wish I could tell you off the top of my head. I know it's enough to help us support the office and the work that we do here in Coffee County. We have Nicole could probably even tell you the numbers of people that she serves each year.
Just since the beginning of the year of 2024, I'm actively working with 16 different victims.
Yeah. So that's just in, just a matter of 5 or 6, 5.5 months, I guess.
Yeah.
So, we do have a need, certainly, in Coffee County. I think the need is probably greater than our numbers demonstrate, because it's not easy to make a phone call to the 800 number or to the local office and seek help. So, one of the things that we do to also help in our community, I didn't mention our prevention program. So, we have a staff member whose sole job is to get out into the community and talk to people about prevention. She works really closely with a lot of the schools in the area. Anyone from preschool clear up through college, talking about what a healthy relationship looks like, and really working to, kind of put that prevention, seed that prevention, so that they can make good decisions and have healthy relationships later in their lives. So, my apologies that I didn't bring that.
And we are active in Burlington schools.
And yes, absolutely, in Burlington. So I apologize that I didn't have that number off the top of my head. I didn't bring my materials with me, which is not like me. It's Monday morning. So, other questions?
No.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks for the report, thanks for what you do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very
We love
much
to
needed
come and talk
program.
about what we do, so thank you
Yeah,
very much.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh,
That
I'll
was,
take the quotes.
okay.
that's not in our budget book, is it?
Oh,
Pardon?
Mary got it.
Budget, oh, sure.
Yep,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm trying to think of what it was last year, and I can't remember.
I don't recall what it says.
I'll look it up later. I should have got it out, so I just looked at it. There's that one lady who's around once a year.
Am I up next?
You are.
Awesome.
Staying right on the time so far.
What now?
We're staying right on the time so
Yeah,
far.
we're-
That's right, I'm glad I came a little early.
Well, you'll probably mess it up.
I know, I will. I like to get out.
I'm having a hard time thinking about
All right, my name is Shirley, for anybody who may not know me. I'm from the museum. Hey, what's up?
How are you?
Good. All right, so I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about the past year.
it. Is it?
in '23, before I dive into my narrative and all that kind of stuff. So we've had a lot of stuff go on the past year, a lot of unexpected. I'm not really a big unexpected person. I don't think anybody really is, but multiple unexpected isn't really that great. The first step is we had to get a new auditor, and that was from Morrow & Company out of Wichita to Von Felt in Manhattan, which that went up in price last year. A good thing was we finally got our mammoth on display. We had over 100 students come in for our school tours in May. We did have 2 part-time students come in for employment during the summer to really help out, one in the genealogy library with Aaron and one with the artifacts with me. We had sprinkler system issues, which is still ongoing. Years ago, there was a semi that had ran over a part of the section from the co-op, and so we've been without our sprinklers for about 4 years now. So the city came out last year, and it took quite a bit of time, and they got their section fixed. This year, we found out that there's another part on our side, so we're still without the sprinkler. So that's just an ongoing thing we're dealing with. We've repaired the fascia on the north side of the museum with gutters. We had a second window break in the church, which is a difficult thing because our church obviously is 1800s, so nobody can come out and fix it. So I'm trying to find an expert in that type of window. So right now they're kind of boarded up. We had Pioneer Days in September. It's the first time we moved it to September. It worked out really well. It was about 225 people in attendance. So here's the other one that I was going to really get into. We had foundation issues. So right before Pioneer Days, I'm expecting all these littles to come in, I noticed that a display case that's with windows was separating really bad. And so I got pretty scared. I didn't want any glass flying at anybody. So we had someone come in, they removed the windows for us. We then contacted, after Pioneer Days, various companies, and so they did their measurements. Basically what it all boiled down to was that there was a 1-inch decline in the military gallery. The biggest was the Cochrane, which is where we have the dolls, so it's the furthest gallery. It was 1.5, and so it's going like this. So we moved everything out and around. It cost us about $45,000 to get that foundation area fixed. Because of that, we started to just kind of panic first. But second, we tried to really down what we were spending on repairs, anything you can imagine. You know, we were thinking about going to a conference. We didn't do that. Just trying to kind of help with that price in itself. We also had to move an exterior AC unit before they did that. That wasn't put onto our budget until this year. They didn't build for this year, so that kind of messed with my HVAC line item for this year. We still need to get the repairs on the exterior bricks fixed, but we did bury the downspouts to get the water away from the building, so that was a very good positive right there. I think what really happened was because we had drought for so long, and we were without our sprinkler system, which we never have. I think that just really affected our foundation, is what I'm assuming really happened. The company is going to be coming out every year for 5 years to monitor, so that was nice. So now we go into this year, and okay, so we just got our gallery opened beginning of January, and then a week later we had water issues with another HVAC and our Cochrane, which is where our dolls are at. So we closed that again. That actually turned out to be a valve, but it took about a couple of weeks before we can get everything, the carpet laying back down, so we can get that back open. We had to switch auditors again. That auditor we had used actually got bought out. That increased our rate by about $3,000. So we weren't anticipating that one. We got everything on our Past Perfect, which is a software we use to house all of our artifacts. We finally got everything on it for value, so we're looking at about $2 million for our contents. So this is the first time ever that the museum's actually had everything with a value on it. So, you know, yay for Aaron and I for getting that done. We had a sump pump issue underneath the schools, and so we had to repair that. I have to kind of come up with like a little screen for the window still. Two new things we're doing this summer is we are a part of Sunflower Kansas out of the Kansas Department Conference. We can get a grant for $5 per participant that comes through, so that's pretty cool. And we're also part of the SEK Museum Alliance Passport Program. So both of those, the museum is being advertised through those two programs as well. We also have our summer help again to help us out, and we're scheduled to have our parking lot repaired. In 2025, looking forward, we're going to hopefully be getting the orphan train display, and we've already got a speaker lined up for that, so we can have a speaking engagement. All right. So when we look at the budget request form, 2023, the capital outlay was at $83,000, and that has to do, of course, with our foundation repair. Because of all the issues that we were having, my beautiful core budget narrative looks just terrible. I've got a lot of bolds, and so I am so sorry, but what I was trying to do as things were going along was I was trying to move things out of subcategories to get to capital outlay to help offset the cost. So 2023 isn't as bad as 2024, but there is going to be major differences. So I don't want you to think that, we weren't just spending for contractual. We were really trying to hold on to that money. Our commodities, especially, we were budgeted for $29,000, a little over for commodities, and we had spent $20,000. So that was $10,000 we had gotten, so we were trying to put into capital outlay. Our education, I took out our staff professional, which is a line item for $3,000. Pretty much we didn't do anything for education for Aaron and myself. All right, so 2024, not only was it with the foundation and the HVAC, now, Thursday at our board meeting, we had our insurance presented. And I was only going to be requesting a little over 2% increase until that happened and the winds went out on my sale. So the museum right now is only going to be insured, they had taken it from last year, the museum's only going to be insured for about $2 million. The building itself is like 5.5. So we're way underinsured for just the building itself. And because of everything with the insurance, everything around the United States going up, ours was going to be going up about $8,000, so about 35%. We are on a 10-month payment. So I have 7 months coming out of 1 year, 3 months out of the other. So I'm actually projecting into 26 when I project for next year. That's the big kicker right there, is our insurance. So when that came up, I took things out of capital outlay that wasn't a need. It was a want. You can live without the wants, but you need what you need. So I took things out of there. I kept things out of our professionals, things like that, just trying to get it so it wouldn't have been so high. If I would have just plugged it in, it would have been almost like a 7% ask. So it was really trying to whittle that down. 2024, coming back to it, there's a lot of decreases. So I was still trying to decrease certain line items because of our HVAC cost was continuing to be high. Our insurance for this year, I have to absorb. I had put down for $22,000, and it's going to be $31,000, and so that's a 35% increase right there. Our professional services, I had budgeted $8,500. It's over $10,000 because of the new auditor. I am going to be looking at another auditor for next year, hopefully to get that price back down to being a little bit more reasonable. Our repairs and maintenance is a little bit higher just for the fact that our HVAC is already high because we had things from last year put onto this year's budget form. I did take things out of our staff professional again for that. So what we're looking at basically is that our insurance went up a lot, and I don't know how to absorb that amount. So, we are requesting a 5.21% increase, basically because of the insurance.
The sprinkler system,
Yes.
is that for the fire, is that for fire?
No, this is like the yard.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, our main one, we don't have the sprinkler inside the museum, but we have the fire, the security,
Okay.
all of that.
All right,
Yeah, no, we're good on that.
okay.
We're good with artifacts. Yeah, that would be a heart attack.
No, sprinkler, I mean, I thought probably it was for the yard.
Yeah, the exterior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you have time to shop for some insurance, or?
No, we won't. Our insurance, we go through Trust Point, but what's interesting about, our insurance is because we have we have artifacts, right? And so we have a business and we have what they call inland marine. And so, shopping around for somebody who would, when I give them our value for our artifacts, $2 million, it's agreed upon value. So if I had a stapler that's, worth $45, regular insurance would give me $5. So this insurance, because it's for a museum, will give me the $45 agreed upon value.
In your insurance, I seen a different name than that, and so.
Oh yeah, we have
they
three
will
different,
shop.
yeah.
They'll shop for you, I know.
And she's doing really good, and she's gonna be trying to do a few little things, to kind of, maybe down the cost a smidge, and so, like I said, that was Thursday when she left, so it could be a couple weeks before the underwriters get back with her.
Well, everybody's insurance went up, so.
Mine,
Yours,
yeah.
ours, so, yeah.
Everywhere we looked in our business was higher than what we were already doing.
And she had told me to anticipate next year, right? She said to anticipate another 25 or 25 to 30% for next year. And they're hoping that by next year it's going to start to go down. They're hoping. So.
Does anything ever go down?
It does not. It's
No, I'm
not.
kidding.
You're never going to go back.
No, I know.
Wouldn't that be
I'm
nice?
just kidding.
But at least not to the 30%,
Yeah.
5% would be great.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Well, as usual, your presentation and your
Yeah.
format's awesome, so.
Very good.
Thank you. And like I said, if you have any questions, everything should be within my budget narrative, so.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But she did keep us on schedule, so if you want that break for
That'd be great.
10 minutes, I'll break for till 9:58. Sweet. Got farther hard on the first week. It was a good one, then ended.
Uh-huh.
We're back. And next up is that one lady, me.
Good morning, guys.
How you doing?
Good morning.
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
All right. So I just have some updates on the renovation. Some packets to hand out to you guys if you guys would like to follow along. Wait, would you like one? So a little recap, I just finished up the 75% drawing set meeting with BG Consultants, and then on June 26th, we are scheduled for the 90% drawing set. Which they did provide. I'll actually just go through the packet on there. I'll go over this packet first. So this is the drawing set. So if you guys turn to M102,
PM, you said?
Yeah.
That way back in there?
It is towards the back, it's like the third page from the back.
Third from back.
So this is what it looks like. So this one, it shows there's a break area that's towards the bottom. It's on the south of the building. It has the table with the 4 chairs. It is going to, so the renovation is going to remove a load-bearing wall, but they are going to put a steel reinforcement beam, so it should not, well, it won't alter the integrity of the structure. And then this is also the ventilation system on this page. They are going to put some soundproofing booths on the ventilation system so you can't hear what's being discussed in each exam room. And then E102, so if you flip the page, this is where we will have all of our electrical outlets. So we have been running into an issue with, on the north wall, we blow breakers quite often, typically on a daily basis. So what they are planning on doing is putting in a breaker box to give us more power to that side of the health department. So that's the side that has all of our exam rooms and like our immunization coolers and freezers. So hopefully, they said that that will correct that issue. Our immunization fridges and freezers, they are hooked up to the generator as well, so we do have backup power to those. So they'll be doing the data rep-ins for all of the office space where we will have desktops. So each exam room, they will all have a wall mount desktop and they will have data rep-ins for that, along with where all of our staff members will be sitting on that east side wall. So the second page that I provided was the architect's opinion of probable construction costs. So it's after the stapled copies.
At the front?
It's after the stapled copies in the packet.
There it is.
So it looks
Okay,
like this.
okay, I did.
So the estimated base bid construction cost is $373,225. They did factor in worst case scenario just because they do not know where the plumbing, the fresh or clean water and dirty water is coming from, the piping for that. The blueprints of the health department did not include that, so that's why they adjusted it for a higher cost.
And that number figures that in, is that correct?
That's correct. They said that that's the most that the construction will cost.
Okay.
They did a complexity factor based off of percentage as well. So there are 3 different alternates that I would like to discuss. So alternate 1 is installing new LED light fixtures. So this is, currently we do not have LED light fixtures down there, but if we were to reuse the light fixtures that we have with the ballast and all that, we would have to store them and they would have to install them as well, reinstall them. So it would be like the takedown fee and then reinstalling our current.
I think that'd be good.
So for new LED light fixtures, it would be $10,987 for the construction cost. Alternate 2 is salvaging and installing the existing coiling counter door. So we have the big manual coiling counter door that currently at our check-in and check-out. The space that we have allowed for our check-in and check-out, it does not allow, we can make it work if we wanted to use that coiling door, but it's going to be an additional $3,276. We have a locked door already coming into the health department, and the way that the architect had explained it, he said that he doesn't feel like it would be necessary to have a coiling door, because if they're already at the counter, if there's a threat and they're already at the counter, I mean, we already have to walk up there and pull the door down.
So it doesn't accomplish much unless you got a knob outside or something.
Yeah, so I'm leaning towards not salvaging that for space reasons and for, in reality, it sort of defeats the purpose of it. We do have a panic button, 2 panic buttons located within the health department that will notify the sheriff's department if something were to occur.
The locked door goes into your office, is that correct? Is that where the locked door is? I'm
So-
just trying to, because you walk into the office, that's an unlocked door, the main door, right?
So the main patient access door, that will be locked after business hours. But to the employee area, we have 2 access points for employees that have badge access,
Okay.
and those are locked. You have to have a badge or
Right.
one of the wristbands
Sure.
to be able to get into them. And that one will be leading into the new break area, and one will be leading into the backside of the lobby into the patient exam room area. So that's where we would call patients back.
What's the time frame to complete this project?
So the proposed construction start date is September 1st, and the completion date is December 1st.
Wow.
It'll be in 2 phases.
Just 90 days.
It'll be in 2 phases. I will go over alternate 3 real quick. It's just signage, and it has the braille. I went ahead and opted in for that just so we can be ADA compliant, and that's an additional $2,499, and that'll include our new storage space as well. So you had a question about the timeline, so we will go in phases. So on the 3rd and 4th page, so that's D101 and D102, this is the phase that we will have the construction performed. So the first phase will be the patient care area. So the patient care area includes all of the exam rooms, the bathroom, and a portion of the lobby. So during that phase, my current office, that will be where we will see patients. We will use that as a temporary exam room. We will limit patient appointments, but we will continue to see patients. And then phase D102, that's the second phase and final phase, and this will include the office space, so the personnel space, the break area, and environmental health. So we will relocate our staff in the 2 offices in the exam room as temporary workspace, and we will continue to see patients. There will be a couple of days during the transition from phase 1 to phase 2 that we might potentially have to restrict seeing patients. So there will also be some pretty loud construction on those days. one of us will come in early to be there while they're doing that, so it's not disturbing patient care. You guys have any questions on that?
This isn't a question on that, maybe, but there's 2,200 square feet in the health department. Don't say mine, so I can be quite that much there, but I'm sure you're right. 2,200 square feet is pretty good size.
Yeah, and I think that having this renovation will help with the flow for sure, because right now we do have some wasted space, especially in the exam room, like the patient hallway area. It's just a
Big dead space.
yeah, and hopefully, well, I know that it will definitely help, because I mean, it'll allow us space to have like a check-in for like the nurses, so like getting the weight, blood pressures, and all of that before getting them into the exam room if they have a service that requires that, or if it's like a wellness visit. Yeah.
Awesome.
So on July 10th, BG will submit the bid documents to the online planning room, and then that will follow the 3-week bid period. And then on August 1st, BG will submit the recommendation for the bids that they received to Coffee County. And then the week of August 5th will be the notice of award.
How many bids do you think you'll receive? Any idea at all?
I don't have any idea.
Is there any grant money available for this particular project?
So I know that there was mention for using a portion of the CARES Act.
Yeah, you had something that we were gonna use a portion of the CARES.
So we used $18,032.70 for the architect fees through grants. And then for some of the items that we will be purchasing, I've actually started making the purchases last week that's coming from grant funding. That is expanding our testing. So this is from the Care Resource Coordination and Expanded Testing Fund, or grant. And it's the BD Verter Plus Analyzer. So this is for the rapid RSV, Strep A, COVID, and Influenza A and B testing. And then out of that same grant, it will be purchasing all of our wall mounts and computer setups for each exam room, including the barcode scanner, so we can scan the medication with the patients in the room before administering. And then that same grant, we are, so that same grant, that includes the monitor, the towers, and the wall mounts. And then for our family planning amended funding, so that was the grant that we were awarded additional funds around the time that we had our family planning audit. That's going to be purchasing a new exam table, and it's going to be one of the exam tables that will lower to a, so we don't have the population stepping up onto the exam table, so this one will lower, and it also has the patient support rails, and it will have an LED exam table kit, so it's the light for public exams.
On that relief fund, is there a time frame where that's being used?
I don't know when, we're gonna get checked into that, but, I know our project's a necessity, so we'll figure out where the funding comes from when it boils down to it. That's my opinion on it anyway. Am I correct, Debbie? It's a highly needed project.
To remain compliant, right?
Yes. Oh, I believe it was suggested, yeah, we use the CARES money.
Okay.
And I think that was okay to do that, if I
Correct.
remember.
If I remember correctly, but we'll
Yeah.
double check.
Just wonder if there's an end date where that's got to be used. Last time I'd heard on it, I didn't think there was an end date.
No, I think it's just there, so I think we'll be
I
fine.
don't think it's an end date because it's a problem. You know, by putting these bids out, I forget the date you mentioned, 10th of July or whenever.
Mhm.
If low bidder comes in where he's 3 months behind, 4 months behind, how are you gonna handle that? Because these contractors are, you don't know which way's up. I don't mean that to be negative,
Mhm.
because if they're good contractors, they're gonna be busy.
I would take in consideration of still using them, as long as we can hopefully get it done in a timely manner, because I don't want to affect our patient care more than we need, or more than we should.
So it may, it may walk into a timing problem for a contractor.
Mhm.
We'll address that when it comes.
Mhm.
So only alternates, alternate one and alternate three are the ones that, alternate two, you're not, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump around.
It's okay. So the alternate.
Alternate one is the LED lights,
Mhm.
and then you said alternate two, you weren't going to do anything with that, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So alternate one, I do plan on using the LED, getting
Right,
new
right.
LED lights, as long as you guys are okay with that.
And then alternate three was,
We're doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, alternate three.
So,
Right.
Thanks.
Yep. Pretty good.
I think the
They said that
Alternate two.
I think LED lights on the thing to use now.
yeah, they said that the lights that we have now are pretty outdated and require more
I'm sure they
maintenance.
Yeah.
Not very efficient on energy.
Yeah, it's not efficient.
And something that I didn't mention in the layout, so with the proposed layout, all of the walls that have the little squiggly lines, those are gonna have soundproofing insulation in them to help reduce the noise that we can hear from each exam room as well. You guys have any questions, any other questions, recommendations?
I don't think so.
Okay to proceed?
Yep.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned,
As far as I'm
everybody,
concerned.
Sounds good.
Okay.
you don't see anything, any reason why we shouldn't,
It's going through the right channels.
very much so.
Yeah.
The answer to Don's concern, and Tom, you probably know better than anybody, is the bonding process, a bid bond, and you can have a consequence for not meeting a timeline through that bonding process.
Yeah.
So you're right, but it can be handled so that there's
Part of the bid-
financial penalty.
Yeah, part of the bid requirement, and when you suggest you want it done by, wouldn't it be?
Mhm.
I mean, they'd be aware of what the time frame was when they did
Yeah.
the job, I would think.
They are,
Okay.
And really, BG Consultants, they will be having the conversations with the,
contract.
contractors that place the bids, so that would kind of leave us out of those
Yeah. Okay.
There may
difficult
be,
discussions.
for
Maybe a little.
scheduling, there may be little negotiations that have to be done.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
that's wishful thinking right now.
Yeah.
You know, this is a pretty good size, it's like a fairly decent sized house.
Mhm.
But the timeline that we suggest to them, I'm sure is gonna be a little short. And I'm not trying to bring up negative stuff, but I don't want a good bidder not bid because he's a little short on time.
Restricted to.
Yeah.
And I think we gotta be a little careful, maybe a little careful. For a good contractor or two of them, in a small county like Coffee,
Mhm.
they're not available to.
And I can relay that information over to Grant with BG Consultants. He's very,
Going over
Easy to
good
work with.
bid, so.
alright, anything else?
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Have a good day, guys.
You too. Good morning, Christina.
Good morning.
Looks like we're on time here.
I know, that's wonderful.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's nice and amazing.
Nice and amazing.
It might change now, Tom.
That's okay.
Okay.
Happy to spend time with you.
I know it's always quality time.
That's right.
Exactly. What is your protocol to go into executive session, or are
I
you
don't know what
wanting?
the verbiage you wanna use.
I just wanted to go into executive session for an HR consultation with the commissioners.
And Christina and
John Dietrich,
Tony for
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Motion go into an executive session with Christina,
And John Dietrich.
John Dietrich, and the board for 30 minutes for consultation.
I'll make that motion.
Steve moved.
Oh.
No. We don't need Mr. Bowie for any reason. Okay.
Well,
I think,
so it's non-elected, I'm just trying to figure out what's your specific coma exception, because we gotta pick one.
Probably a non-elected personnel matter.
okay.
And to discuss,
Personnel issues.
okay. I just wanna make sure that,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Get it covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
You typing that in, Casey?
Yeah, I'm not like word for word what it's gonna
Okay.
be, but I'm making myself notes, so I
Okay.
have.
Right.
a lot.
Enter, need motion to enter an executive session, it's non-elected personnel. 30 minutes. People is originally suggested.
I'll make that motion.
Steve's moved. I'll second that. Thompson seconded. Any further discussion?
And that's for 30 minutes, is that correct?
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. We'll go in at 10:24. We gotta go down yonder, so.
Okay, Dawn Newman. We're moving.
Yeah.
Great, how you guys doing?
Good.
Wonderful.
Some days I'm good.
They're not sitting down, so it doesn't.
No, so we're gonna go back for another 30 minutes for everything as previously proposed with the addition of Jesse Knight via phone. Need a motion.
Also moved.
I'll second that.
Thompson, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
30 minutes, we'll go in at 11 o'clock.
way to go.
No action taken during the last two executive sessions. And it is 11:33. Road or bridge? Well, no, actually, Joe Serrano.
All right. Thank
Put on
you.
my glasses, I can actually
Thank
see
you,
things.
Commissioners. Very nice to see everybody. I have 3 items that I would like to run through. I will do it so relatively quickly, but if you have any questions, please stop me. The first one that I'd like to talk about is this proposed amphitheater project that you've heard about. You've heard me talk on the Zoom link, or the Zoom, that you know, the county, the aspect of the county being the operator, that gave some reservation associated with really funds from the county, how to use that, where the county was set up to operate an amphitheater. The developer in this instance has found an operator. The operator has done some other venues that he's managed. But they want to show the county support. They want an effort to show that the county will support the amphitheater. So before you this morning is a resolution of intent. I've drafted this as a resolution of intent. It provides three things. That the county will increase the transient guest tax from 3% to 5%. To the extent that the transient guest tax is available, that the county would divert the transient guest tax to support the operations of the amphitheater. And the third one, as you may recall, there's a hotel that's being constructed as part of this, that the county would divert the county share of the property tax associated solely with that hotel. The purpose behind this declaration, or this resolution, is solely, it's a non-binding resolution. It's to evidence the county's intent to support the amphitheater if it gets built and is started to be operated. And the main reason the developer wants this, or the developers, is so that they can go to the state of Kansas to ask for a STAR, what we call STAR bond financing, but it's no longer bonds, it'll be STAR financing, which that financing is the diversion of the state retail sales tax to help support the amphitheater. So again, non-binding. This would be subject to further action. Further action would be, we have to work, the county councilor and I would have to work on amending the charter resolution for the transient guest tax. And secondly, we have to work through a development agreement. We were trying to figure out what that development agreement would be like, but because there may be some conditions that the city of Burlington will want, we've opted that it's probably best to come back at a later time for that resolution. I can tell you, it's going to be very similar to that rebate agreement that we have in some other instances, including up north by the Beto Junction and the SSM rebate. But this is, again, it's for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions. That's the first item on this one. This is really the only action item that I will have for today.
The exemption is 10 years, or it's as long as his business is there?
We're going to tie this to, I mean, we have not even negotiated this. But Commissioner, what we're thinking about doing is tying the rebate to the 10 years, and then any other incentive that would be available that's transient guest tax would be probably tied to the CID. That CID on retail sales tax can go out 22 years. So we have not negotiated that, and I don't even know if that's the flavor of this commission, but internally we're talking about property tax associated with a 10-year period, statutory period, and the transient guest tax to the extent that it's available out to 22 years. And I say to the extent that it's available, you've heard me say in this here and on Zoom that the state generally wants the support, whether it's a city retail sales tax or a transient guest tax within the county or a city. They generally want that to pay off the STAR financing. So it's still up in the air. Again, this is solely like a term sheet that I think Mr. Mashad was talking about. It was a term sheet. In lieu of a term sheet, it's just a resolution declaring the intent of the county to support the amphitheater if it gets built, and if the hotel is available, is also built.
And this would be the only involvement that the county would have in it, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to operate it.
Right.
The county's not going to operate it. And it's almost self-enforcing to a certain extent, because if they don't build the hotel, we're not diverting the county share. If they don't have transient guest tax, we're not giving it to them. So it's somewhat self-supporting. But it would be a commitment by the county only to increase the TGT, divert it if it's available and the state doesn't take it, and then divert the county share of the hotel property tax.
And that's just on the hotel?
Only on the hotel. But the amphitheater, probably, my understanding is, they'll probably annex that property in the city of Burlington, is my understanding, and they will probably abate the property tax on the amphitheater for that 10-year period of time.
Sure.
So, move to approve resolution 2024-99933, the resolution declaring the intent of Coffee County, Kansas, evidencing support of proposed amphitheater project within the county. I so moved.
I'll second.
Keegan has moved, Nate's seconded. I've got a question. Go ahead.
I'm not sure whether this is connected with this resolution. And I didn't see it until late last night, so I didn't have any way to print it off. Some of the paperwork Casey sent us was labeled Bond Resolution 2024A. And I believe this was with the CID, I believe, if I remember correctly. On page 3 of that, of the A, and then it's stated again on the other one, on the 2024 without the A, it says people that basically would be able to sign on the county's behalf were the chairman, the clerk.
Well, that's another, this has nothing to do with that.
I
Okay.
was going to
I'll ask you this question.
I was going to get to that
I
one.
wanted to make sure that wasn't tied to this. I
Yeah.
don't think it is.
No, this, and I'll get to that, Commissioner, I'll get to that in the next
Okay,
one. I think it was
sorry.
reference to the county manager, I believe, and we'll get that
Yeah.
corrected. But, in this instance, it's really, this is going to be subject to further action, as I mentioned, a development agreement or rebate agreement, as well as, a resolution amending the charter
So
resolution.
you just
Okay.
start with this, and then you expand it later, is all you're doing.
We're going to start with this, just showing that we're going to provide what I call county support or public support if it gets built, and there's transient guest tax, that we would support that to the extent that is available and subject to a development agreement.
Yes, okay.
And abating property tax.
You got it.
Correct. And abating property tax, yeah, that's just for this project.
Okay.
So I moved, Meat seconded, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
I'll wait. Should I go ahead and move to the second item, should I wait? Go ahead, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, so the second item is really informational purposes only. This is related to the SSM project, secured semiconductor manufacturing, that deal. You guys have heard about it for
Yeah.
well over,
A year?
yeah, quite a bit of time. So this, again, informational only. But we entered into a development agreement with that company, and included in that development agreement had a project budget, and it also had what we call a form of what we labeled as an investment and disbursement agreement. Those are attached to that agreement. And so one of the items that will come before you at a later time is an amendment, what we label as a second amendment to the development agreement, solely for the purpose of amending the project budget and include that revised form of investment disbursement agreement, which you don't have anything to do with that. It's going to this now a different entity that's going to be the investment and paying agent under that agreement. And again, later time, and I'll give you more information associated with that. But before you, and this is just really for you to start to digest, it's going to be a second amendment, but it's very, very relatively generic. As I mentioned, it's only those two purposes. There will be, along with that, a resolution that approves the form of the development agreement, or this amendment to the development agreement. And again, included in that and other things, we're still working on some of the documentation. And so, that will come before you, a resolution authorizing amendment of the Second Amendment and Second Amendment itself. But more importantly, when we get into the bond financing in September of 2023, this commission adopted Resolution 915 and 916. They authorized two series of bonds. This 2023 A series was for $2 million, and the 2023 B series was for $1.5 million. And those numbers have not changed. It's still that's what the county is willing to offer in terms of public debt. However, as we know, we've rolled over into a new year. and we labeled those Series 2023, and now it has to be labeled Series 2024 A and B, as well as the municipal advisor and the other side is working with USDA, and they want to have some provision in here that in these resolutions that simply provide that the income on these bonds will be taxable. They clearly are taxable at the federal level. They're tax exempt at the state level, and they want a statement that says that the purchaser will treat these bonds as taxable at the state level. Doesn't really have any impact on you, but that's a modification to the agreements that were provided earlier. So when we come before you the next time we're down here, we will have those action items. The reason why we were trying to get this on today, and so it was part of the agenda, we were thinking that we were in a position to go ahead and have these items considered. However, we received a note that we're still not there. The USDA, as my understanding, has approved the financing, but we still need to figure out a closing date. And once we figure out the closing date, then soon before that, I'll be down here to ask for your consideration of these items. But nothing for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions associated with these.
But USDA has approved.
My understanding is they have. I mean, this has been as we all know, it's been such a delay, and we were really scrambling to get these things approved in September of last year, and then there's quite a few hurdles. The last hurdle I understand was to treat the state income or the interest on those bonds at a state level as taxable. But my understanding, we have an email that says that the federal government and USDA has approved these financings, so I'm relying on that.
Right.
Any questions on these items? Again, you'll have an opportunity when I'm down here the next time. And I don't know when that will be, but and just as an FYI, once we get these approved, we still have to go through a process to submit this to the Kansas Attorney General for approval. So it won't be we're down here and we're closing bonds the next day. We're down here, we have a buyer, we'll get everything approved, and it's at that closing date. Whenever that closing date is selected, we will have the closing of the bonds and the closing of those USDA loans, the B&I and the Red Lake that you've heard about. And then we'll have money that hopefully they'll start turning dirt.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So again, informational only. And the final one that I have is Richard asked that I address quickly the second series of bonds for the jail financing. You may recall that the financing includes $20 million of bond, up to $20 million of bonds. We issued the first series of bonds. At some point, we're going to spend down that money. We have roughly an estimate of about December of this year that the county support as well as the bond proceeds may be extinguished or are fully used. So we will need to be down here at some point for the second series of bonds. I typically say it takes 2.5 months to 3 months to get a series of bonds out the door and sold. There is a little bit of market-driven factors that we have to consider. When's the right time to be in the market to sell this debt? Interest rates are still fluctuating. We're pretty much at, I can't talk about that. The municipal advisor will talk a little bit about when the right timing is, but understand that we'll be back here before we blow through, we spend all the money in that project fund. We'll be back for a second series of bonds. That second series of bonds will be a taxable series of bonds because we're going to house federal inmates, and so we have to, as we talked about several years back, that we will have to have that as a taxable series of bonds. But again, nothing for any action item. It's more informational, and I appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions you may have.
You seem to understand what I was alluding to before.
Yeah, in that resolution, the 2024A and 2024B, there is a reference as to authorized county representative. And really, the authorized county representative is something that really there's very little that we're doing. But one of the functions that is in the authorized county in those resolutions, the authorized county representative, I put in there county manager, but it really should be county administrator. But the only role that anybody is going to be doing is certifying certain costs that are associated with the SSM project. We're not going to.
That would be your company. Which-
No, it would be through the county treasurer's office. Yeah, but we say, hey, listen, instead of us impacting you every time they have a draw on this project fund, and you have to have a meeting to say, okay, they're entitled to be reimbursed $100,000, we can delegate that to a county officer, and not have to impose upon this commission every time that there's a draw.
So Richard would be the one that,
I mean, we will talk about that. We have talked about that. We have looked at that, and I don't know if you recall, but there is a loan, an economic development loan. And so we work with Richard as to say, hey, what are eligible costs? So I'm assuming, without imposing upon Richard, but we're already kind of set up to say these are eligible costs. Again, with this financing, and I'm sorry to belabor you a little bit more, but with the CID, this SSM financing, we're going to pay off that loan. So it would seem logical that we would work to be able to kind of go through that vetting process associated with these eligible costs. For our purpose, we just want to make certain they're CID, they're statutorily eligible costs. There's going to be other pools of funds that are out there, the USC, the CDBG grant and the like, but for our role, it's only for that $3.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my only question. Is
Sure.
that we don't have a county manager position, and I wanted to make sure who that was or wasn't.
Yeah, and we'll make modifications that include it, and I apologize, but we'll make it
No,
as
that's
county
fine.
administrator.
That's
So.
And the big difference in the expenses, we had the line of credit, and that line of credit, because they needed to move forward, it was a little more lenient. And so they were drawing up lines and such. There were no concrete expenses on some of them, because we don't have anything out here built yet. The $3.5 million of bonds is fully concrete type. If it's not a structural, if you're not putting up 2x4s or aluminum girders, steel girders, we're not gonna approve it. That's not what we're spending our money on. We wanna tax something, we want something there that we can take back if it doesn't get paid.
if it doesn't pay out.
Right.
It's a mental capacity, intellectual capacity, that does us no good.
One of the items associated with that, Richard, is we have a budget that will be attached to that development agreement, and we've approved that agreement, but there's a little bit of work to do on that budget because there's some soft costs that are associated with that. Also, as a way of protection for the county, that we will allow a $500,000 initial disbursement out of the $3.5 million, $3.5 million. $500,000 can go for whatever it wants, but after that period of time, it will be dollar for dollar. So every time there's a dollar coming out of this county's project fund, there's also coming a dollar out of the B&I fund as well as the Red Lake fund. So we gave them grace on the first $500,000. The first $500,000, of course, is going to help pay back the $300,000 loan, but then there's a little bit more float right there for that. So we will work to that because there is a budget, and we looked at it, and it gave us a little bit of angst when we were starting to certify costs associated with the statute, and I think we had a little bit of question. So we'll work on that and bring back to you a valid agreement.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
taking
you.
it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, yeah, we'll see you soon.
You'll be back this afternoon, right?
I'm not back this afternoon.
You're not?
I unfortunately had another meeting that I just learned about it, but I'm going to listen to it,
Okay.
and then I'll be as versed as hopefully everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ryan?
Good morning.
Morning.
Just
Thank you,
quick,
Richard.
Thank you.
quick update, we didn't have any call outs last weekend. Couple of roads we got to open back up was Oxon 1 to 2 down there by Leroy. We finally got all the materials and the weather cooperated to get that opened back up. Then I believe Flat Rock should be opened back up today fully. Other than that, we'll probably start chip sealing this Wednesday is our plan on the Autobahn. So kind of transitioning into some of that work. Got a few motions. First one is going to be for a change order. This is for the asphalt project east of town And this is basically for, some mill work on some bridge approaches out there, concrete, that we didn't have figured in. And so they come up with a cost on that of $10,137.84. Yeah, that's really on that. We are running some final numbers on that. Looks like that project come under about $6,700, so offset some of that, but.
So move to approve change order number 1 for A2402-C hot mix asphalt project on 11th Lane east of River Bridge to Planter Road and 12th Road, Coyle Road to Reefer Road. Profile Mill Bridge approaches west and east side, approximately 50 foot by 28.5 feet, for a total net increase of $10,137.84 to the contract.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and Curry seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next is a motion, this is CP2. So when we hire on our summer help, we hired several in as laborers with the intentions that some of them would be needed to move up to light equipment operators. So this is one, I've got one today, Joshua Bruckner, to move from a light equipment operator, to move from a laborer to a light equipment operator, and that's just, he's on a roller all the time, brings he's in light equipment. Though more than likely we'll have more at a later date, but he's the first one.
Move to review and approve CP2 payroll notice for Joshua Bruckner, summer help, light equipment operator. Highway promotion from wage classification 5-1 to 30-1 from wage 1509 to 1916, effective 6/17 of 2024. Number of hours worked not to exceed 1,000.
Also moved.
Meets is moved.
I'll second that.
Thompson seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you. The next motion, we had in our budget for this year a lawnmower purchase for the landfill. They mow over 10 acres of grass out there. The current model is a 2010 model with unknown hours, but it's well over 6,000 hours. And so we're basically just wanting to replace the same size, same type machine that we've had up there. They've offered $1,000 on a trade-in, and so this is through Sourcewell pricing, so governmental pricing, and I think it's a pretty good price for this mower.
Based upon a recommendation of the Road and Bridge Superintendent to waive purchasing policy as competitive bidding for good cause, said cause being municipal program pricing with Sourcewell, Government Purchasing Alliance with Coffee County, number 118463, and to approve the purchase of one 2024 Hustler diesel 72-inch zero-turn mower for Coffee County Power Sports LLC in New Strong, Kansas. Quote number 4600 in the amount of $16,333, less trade-in value of $1,000, and the total purchase price amount of $15,749. And to approve and to authorize and direct the Road and Bridge Superintendent to sign all documents related to thereto. Funding for the purchase will come from General Fund Landfill Equipment line item. Also moved.
Second.
Julian moved, Curry seconded. Any discussion?
Why is the price not $1,000 less?
I don't.
That should be 15,633 instead.
I'd have to
Or
look
is
at that.
or is the actual purchase price $15,749 and there'll be $1,000 off of that?
No, I think the actual purchase price with the trade-in should be $15,749. That 16,330 was wrong.
Is the wrong number.
Should be 16,749.
Good catch. I mean, I read that and it's like, there's some, administrative fees.
Well, that's just all I wanted, was just wondering if there was, an option or something that, that was gonna be on it or something. So the more you got runs.
Yes, it does.
So do we need to do anything different with that, or?
No, we just changed the dollar amount, the purchase price is $16,749, is that correct?
Correct.
Less a $1,000 trade-in, which makes a total purchase price of $15,749. So kind of an amended motion. I'll still move.
I'll still second.
Gary still seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Then the next is just a disposal motion for the mower that we're trading off.
Move to find that one 2010 Hustler diesel 72-inch zero-turn mower is no longer required, cannot prudently be used for public purposes of Coffee County, and such should be disposed of by trade-in to Coffee County Power Sports for $1,000. Notice of board's intention to dispose of said property will be published on the June 20, 2024 and the June 27, 2024 official county newspaper.
I'll move.
I'll second that.
Curry's moved, Thompson seconded.
Who seconded?
Thompson, yeah. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Alright, thanks. That's all the motions I had. I know you guys are kinda stretched for time, but I was hoping for an executive session, short, maybe 10 minutes, just to update. For non-elected personnel, and a medical issue for the board, myself and Wade, if you have time.
Yeah, we do. Could we go ahead and do Mr. Keegan and
Sure.
Rowdy? And come back to you, is that all right?
Yep, that's fine.
That way we can let them get to lunch. Good morning, Rowdy.
Good morning, how are you guys?
Morning.
How are you?
I would also ask to start this with executive session, because there's some things I want to talk about that I'm prohibited from discussing with anything other than our partners.
I see.
So if you want to do that, you're...
Well, I didn't know what your timeline was like, so that's why.
We're at your beck and call for the next several hours,
Oh,
if you need.
okay. Any suggestions? I did not know. He's wanted executive session as well to discuss.
At least for the first part, because again, there's just some things I can't talk about otherwise.
All right.
So they got a hold of me in advance, and we've walked through some of what the technical issues are.
Well, that's why I put Ryan off, was to not hold him up, but cause not knowing they wanted executive session, so they're giving us a go-ahead to get Ryan's out of the way. If that's what if that's what you'd rather do to get that.
Either way, I'm good with whatever works. Ryan, you said 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I think that'd be.
No,
We go down.
we leave,
go
you
down.
guys don't have to leave.
Oh, you guys leave?
Yeah.
I'll track you down.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and so I'd like to request a 10-minute executive session for the board, myself and Wade, for non-elected personnel regarding medical issue.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Curry's moved.
10 minutes,
10
Ryan.
minutes, right?
Please.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll go in at 12:05 for 10 minutes. Whoops. One more room in that chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should have flipped it, I'm sorry. No action taken.
That's what I had for today, unless you guys have any questions on anything for me.
I do not. I don't know.
Okay.
got all the four shafts pretty well completed.
Well, for now, till the next one's, next one's hit, so.
People did notice that you guys were out on that Sunday.
Yeah, we had four.
I mean, they were really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's appreciated everyone did come out on weekends like that.
And
but
I
it's-
mean, I had two or three just
Yeah,
make the comment that they saw the road crew out. So you did good.
yeah, thank you.
Well, I seen you had some people out Friday.
Yeah, we worked half a day Friday. The asphalt got done, and we needed to get some rock on those driveways, and then had just a couple hours we would like to get that, couple of them roads opened up. Want them opened up for the weekend, so we worked a few extra hours just get on top of it for this week, so.
Awesome.
Yep, all right.
Good job.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Back up. All right.
We'll try her again, right?
That's good. So I guess I'm asking for 10 minutes for executive session.
Okay.
So this will be under the financial affairs or trade secrets exception to the Open Meetings Act. They had reached out to me in advance to try to figure out, to explain the nature of what their request would be, what they'd be talking about, and I think there'll be a summary afterwards that can be publicly disclosed, but in essence, to go into executive session under the financial affairs of a corporation, which is what this is, there has to be a reason for doing so, and to disclose the nature of some of the information that they want to discuss with this board would potentially compromise or violate some specific guidelines they have in relation to the CHIPS application process. And there is the reason why it can be disclosed only to the board in a private setting is the county is considered a co-applicant, and for that reason, otherwise it would create a potential problem. So those are the best way to describe what would be a valid reason to go into executive session to talk about that particular subject matter.
Did you get all that?
Also moved.
So do we need to like put it in a particular format, or can we just maybe go in executive session based off of previous comments?
I mean, the ground is
The ground, you laid the groundwork, so
Right.
that's my question. That's sufficient, so.
that is sufficient, and then these two individuals, so, and this is more for people who watch and want to complain, these two individuals are tied to an affiliate with EMP Shield. They're the board of directors, in essence, two of the members, and I don't know who else would be better to come in and make the request to do so to protect their interest. So I think that covers things in case somebody ever wanted to come back and make a complaint.
So it's to enter an executive session for 10 minutes, to include each of the commissioners, EMP Shield, Pete Keegan and Roddy Meyer, County Councilor Wade Bowie, to discuss data relating to financial affairs or trade secrets of the corporation regarding CHIPS under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, KSA 754319B, and McCurry moved, Thompson seconded. Any further discussion? And 10 minutes, did we say?
Go ahead, plenty.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, we go in at 12:25. Well, I'm sorry, but we're gonna go back in for 15 more minutes with the same people in the same, context.
She didn't give me here.
Need a motion?
I can feel you.
Also move.
Thompson's moved, Meeks seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Going back in for 15 more minutes at 12:40. We'll have to go back and watch the video. All right.
Yeah.
I thought it was way
I
beyond.
gotta keep track of time.
I thought it was you and Dawn. but-
I think,
this,
I think Dawn and myself, but I can't remember.
this, this last executive session,
Yes,
I moved on it.
he moved
Yeah, I think so.
and Wade
But
seconded.
double check.
All right, we're back.
You're back?
Go ahead, Rowdy.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to speak here today. In an effort to keep all of you up to date with the Shared CHIPS Act initiatives, I'd like to read a prepared statement. As you know, EMP Shield has made a commitment to being a partner in bringing a CHIPS fab to Coffee County. We did this because it remains our belief that this opportunity is transformative for the state of Kansas, EMP Shield, and the people of Coffee County. During this period of time, EMP Shield has spent in excess of $2 million and invested hundreds of hours of labor to help make this dream a reality for all of us. As you also know, in February, we agreed to a partnership with Inc. Communication Solutions. We did this for several reasons. First, to fulfill the potential remaining steps. In order to achieve an award, the funding required would exceed EMP Shield's capacity, and it will further move us away from our main mission at EMP Shield. Second, at the recommendations of Coffee County, Raymond James, and others, bringing the technical skills needed, the added credibility, and the know-how that EMP Shield did not possess alone. Additionally, it was presented that ICS possesses the political influence and the government connections necessary to successfully advocate for our project. Although EMP Shield is excited and motivated to see this initiative become a reality, it's important that all of you know that we no longer have a decision-making role in the process or the proposal. EMP Shield remains a committed partner in the CHIPS Act initiative, and we look forward to working with Coffee County and our partners as we continue to explore this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome to hang around.
Another meeting, just like
I
all.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our lunch is in there, if you guys wanna do a 10-minute break.
I got a message from Sam Green who said he got caught up in the 75 construction,
Bridge from,
bridge construction. He's running a few minutes late, so it might be a good opportunity to grab a quick bite before he gets here.
15
sure.
minutes, so we'll come back at, 12, or excuse me, 1:13.
For 1:13.
15-minute break, come back at 1:13.
Yeah.
And Casey said our lunches are in there. We're back. Wade, step out to get you an apparatus to get you linked up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it won't detect your guys' monitor.
I think he was looking for HDMI cable. I think.
I had emailed him the attachments, so he was gonna
Oh.
somehow forward it to that device so that can,
Oh, from his office?
Yeah.
Okay.
he must not have access to his email on that device there.
Yeah, we haven't had that up too long, so we don't get to use it all that often, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, whenever the fancy camera is what impresses me, but it looks like the Brady Bunch on there.
Yeah.
Val, yeah.
Yeah, you
That's,
just told
that's
your
what I'm
age.
used to seeing you guys all different quadrants.
Yeah. You just gave up your age, you just said the Brady Bunch.
Brady Bunch.
Who?
Well, thank you guys for wanting to do this in a work session. Like I say, I think they're very important. That way nobody's feeling rushed to try and interrupt on somebody else's time or anything like that. It's just, you take your time and go through it as fast as you want or as slow as you want.
Did y'all receive it Friday? I know we sent it.
Yes.
We could probably go with hard copies as well, if you guys have a hard copy.
Which I do. I mean, I don't know if anybody else.
I didn't.
We got a few extra copies if you
We
want.
got several copies. It's up to you guys.
Well, you need to tell us which one you want to start with, though.
We start with
Main agreement?
the main agreement.
Do it more if you want. Those are double sided.
Thank you.
I think got everybody got that.
It's just the same agreement you already.
This one you talked about, isn't it?
Yep.
We might leave one here for Jesse just in case.
This if you want it.
Okay.
I'm sure you got me everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure, you want.
Okay.
I'll put that on here.
Share.
Like I put it on here.
I'll look over
Saying
it.
about it's double sided printed.
Oh.
That one's double sided. So this has.
Oh.
And this is the same one that they sent out Friday.
Yes.
Double side.
Perfect. Yep, it's separate.
Yep.
Changes to that or not? Double sided.
Pages are numbered.
I'm sorry.
At least they're numbered.
I'd say you get them all, but they're not. Helps if I turn it on.
Appreciate that.
You had a game, Sam?
Do what?
You have games Saturday, Friday?
Yeah, my daughter played a tournament. We were there 10 hours Saturday and 8 hours yesterday.
One weekend for that.
Wow.
Did you win?
They played in the championship, but they took second.
Nothing wrong with that.
No?
Runner up.
Of course, the better they do, the more you, the longer you get to stay.
Yep.
Is that a need to
No.
extending these?
I have retired.
Okay.
You what?
We just
Yeah, do that, yeah.
put that down there on the beach.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because we just want to duplicate.
Right.
Let's go to 7, go to.
My girls had a swing dirt foot.
Oh, maybe instead of extend, duplicate.
So we have one for fall. Together.
We have coming. Three cases of all things. There you go.
All right,
At least real.
we're in business. You still on break? Okay.
Take off.
Well, here I am live in person.
There he is.
Appreciate your guys' time.
We appreciate you coming and taking time.
No, absolutely. So, the main focus for today is an extension of the last time we met, was to provide some update on the development agreement, and some collaboration that we've had with some of the consultants in that, and allow in a more timely setting to walk through each section or part. Also go through the financial model and the vehicle for which different projects listed should be funded. Anything relative to dollars and timeline commitments, because there's such a moving target,
you know, we're reserving that to a closed session. So we won't be showing dollars here, but we can certainly have a deep dive on those dollars in a closed session. So today's really going through the development agreement, the exhibits that will serve as the attachment to the development agreement, and making sure any language or contingencies that Coffee County would like to have incorporated are incorporated. Look at the spreadsheet that we shared before that is the financial model for each project. And then with the goal and anticipation of meeting the deadlines of having a development agreement in a matter that's ready to be negotiated and executed with the developer, or in this case TEM, who's seeking to acquire some property on the KSMC Industrial Park. So the development agreement would be the hard copy that you guys have stapled here. It's the development agreement. Now, we did meet with Raymond James and got some language in here on the general statements and identifying the funding sources or vehicle for funding. We did also review the general language with Fisher Patterson. There's still some more collaboration, of course, to be done there. But this is the working document that we are continuing to develop with their efforts involved. Joe Serrano is another gentleman that we've been we will continue to engage to better understand and validate some of these funding sources through assuming general obligation bonds. And
Joe Serrano.
hey, Joe's here. Hi, Joe. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
So with that, we've shared some of these documents with Joe. Joe's has yet to review them with us to collaborate and better understand any limitations on some of those bond sources or providing some contingencies or protections on any of those bonds as vehicles for funding. Joe, I'll pause for a moment, and if you have any clarification on that statement for collaboration that we need to do.
No, that's great. Well, of course, we'll take a look at it. We just received that information last Friday, so we'll dig in a little bit more and we'll do some collaboration, of course.
So the development agreement, it's on the screen. The recitals, I don't want to go through each section language by language, but some of the main components in here, I'm going to jump to the exhibits, if you guys don't mind, and please feel free to chime in at any moment. But I think the list of the exhibits are very helpful to start as a basis from, and then we can go through the list of projects in that financial model, and then any particular sections that we'd like to discuss. So in the exhibits, what we are calling the project site is comprehensively the KSMC Industrial Park. And the legal description that is in here now is a holding place for the entire KSMC Industrial Park. Eventually there'll be a survey that's done to further define the lots that are the lots that will be acquired by TEM through the purchase agreement. Similarly, the project site map speaks to KSMC Industrial Park as a whole.
What page is that on, Wayne? 25.
So I wanted to make sure we're defining that project site means KSMC Industrial Park. Project scope, or the project, then becomes the TEM fabrication facility. So the acquisition of the lots that they need to develop for the fabrication manufacturing plant to exist. So anywhere within reference of the project or project scope of work or project budget, it's not KSMC Industrial Park as a whole. It's specific to the TEM fabrication manufacturing scope of work. That is Exhibit C. So what we intend on doing is having a narrative within there. We're working on that describes the scope of work for TEM to develop those lots. That would include their on-site horizontal improvements as well as the on-site vertical improvements. Horizontal being the parking lot, striping, lighting for their parking, any safety or security elements relative to that site. Then they'll have their office admin building, they'll have their fabrication manufacturing facility, they'll have a central utility building, a gas yard, and any other support facilities needed for their fabrication to exist. Within the lot boundaries, they'll be tapping into any utilities that are provided from the industrial park, and they'll be extending it to their facilities to make sure their facilities can operate the way they intend. So in order to do that, they will have to enter into utility agreements with the utility providers via power, gas, water, so on and so forth. So Exhibit D would be the performance milestone or timeline or schedule. And our intent on that section is to develop more of a comprehensive timeline. So that will include the KSMC Industrial Park site as a whole, TEM's development of their project for their facility to exist, as well as any off-site utility and infrastructure projects by way of the major utilities needed to extend to the industrial park and extend to the boundaries of their lots, as well as any roadways and highway infrastructure that would need to exist as well. And our intent within that schedule and timeline is to define major milestones that are understood mutually, that are needed as predecessors before any obligations or commitments need to be made. So for example, we all know that TEM is seeking federal funding through the CHIPS for America grant, and our intent is in this milestone schedule and this timeline to make sure that we're identifying those as best as we can on projected dates. So we don't control the Department of Commerce, of course, but have that as an indicator or a trigger, if you will, on any obligations that would be considered post-award movement, whether that's any of Coffee County's participation in developing the industrial park, design, procurement, construction, and then identify any pre-award opportunities to improve the readiness for that in anticipation of a successful grant application. So some of the things that might make sense for Coffee County to invest some time and effort into that may be pre-award activities would be setting up any vehicle or entities within Coffee County to prepare for the development. Is KSMC Industrial Park an association? How is that Industrial Park Association managed and maintained and owned? The anticipation of on-site wastewater, a treatment facility. Does it make sense for Coffee County to set up a sewer district to be able to own and operate that? And is that a revenue generating opportunity? Similar with the public facilities that are anticipated for the site, in a wellness center, emergency wellness center, a daycare facility, and a training facility. Coffee County operating as the master developer, does it make sense for those to be owned and operated under a public building commission? And does it make sense to go ahead and start setting those up early on prior to CHIPS award and getting the vehicles for those in place? And then of course working very closely with Joe Serrano, understanding based on some of these magnitude of costs that we can project conceptually on these budgets for these facilities, what do bond limits or capacities exist, and what vehicles exist for those general obligation bonds or special bonds to fund those projects, on the understanding that those projects then would be leased to an end user that may be public or may be private. Anticipate the wellness center, emergency center, response center may be a Coffee County Fire Department that is leasing from Coffee County's PVC, versus a daycare facility or the training center, maybe a private company that's operating the facility and leasing it from Coffee County. So those are all the things that we'd like to work through, and those are the necessary, actions here moving forward towards the end of the month to be able to get this in a state that can be teed up, if you will, for reviewing and negotiating with TEM. And those are activities that may be pre-award activities that are worth the efforts to understand those and get those entities in place. Lean on the commission here to help us identify pre-award versus post-award activities and time and effort investment. But Exhibit D would outline those scheduled activities. So I look to better understand with Coffee County what is the process and procedures for setting up those vehicles and those entities and those bond requests, so that those timelines and activities can at least be identified in an overall timeline, and understand the relationships for those activities to know what is pre-award, pre-federal funding award activities that make sense to do, and what are post-federal funding activities that make sense to do. And then the Exhibit E, insurance specifications, that's just making sure we have the right document there. Finally, Exhibit F, these will be the documents that describe the right-of-way and infrastructure and improvements that are non-TEM manufacturing fabrication responsibilities. So these would be Coffee County and other responsibilities. That would be the common roads that come into the industrial park, the right-of-ways, the landscaping, the hardscape, the infrastructure that comes in, and then others being the utility corridors that make their way in, and the improvements to US 75 and Old 50 Highway. So those are the exhibits, and that's how we intend on having these exhibits that provide the technical documents and provide the vehicle for understanding in the development agreement. The development agreement in each section then speaks to these in narrative format, speak to the funding sources, the timing of which how funding gets released, and any language that then would need to be incorporated to make sure that the private obligations are clearly identified, and any protections or contingencies for Coffee County are incorporated as well. Pause for a moment if any questions there.
You don't have any milestone scheduling as of yet?
We have a comprehensive
I'm just
schedule.
making sure
the
format of which it came on,
correct.
Make sure I'm on the same page with you, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a living, breathing, working document, and it's evolving. Probably.
Well, you might just go over which exhibits A through F we have in draft format and which ones we currently don't have.
I assume whichever's printed out on here.
Well, some of them are technical exhibits that were separately attached.
Right.
And so they exist, but they wouldn't show up just in 8.5 by 11. But then there's others, like the milestones that you've discussed, that were not yet available to include. And then Exhibit F, for example, is directly attached within the document. I'm just saying, since we have this list up here, it may be worth describing which of those 6 are and are not in development.
Well, and the only other thing I would want to say, I guess, is as far as the building commission and all like that, I mean, I guess I would rely heavily upon either legal counsel or Burns and Mac to say, okay, we need to get this in place, and here's how we get this started. Am I correct with that? I mean, assuming you've been down this road a time or two more than we have, so.
Certainly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, we certainly guide it, and I look for feedback on county from the process side of it.
Okay.
What is the process to stand up a PBC, to create a sewer district, and 2 things. What are the process, and is that something that makes sense based on the strength and capabilities of Coffee County? Not knowing the makeup of Coffee County staffing and resources and in-house capabilities versus outsourced, property management and operations and maintenance side of things, then we would work together to make sure that we're creating a pathway for success.
I know Heidi brought up with our zoning, to me this morning, that there'll be some zoning that needs to be done up there. Do you wanna weigh in on that, or do we need to weigh in on that now?
Well, I don't think they're there yet. The screening plans need to be submitted still. And
Okay.
then do plating, which you're talking about, splitting out the lots. That would be plating.
Correct.
With the county. I don't think we're quite there yet, but those are things that need to be part of it too.
Yes, no, and great point. That's part of the process that we hope to get better understand. Any planning and zoning approvals, if there are special districts that exist that, and some municipalities may have a design review board or design review committee on certain frontages of roads. Any of those things we would look to better understand what those are and how long, what those processes are and how long those would take. From a zoning standpoint, I thought that the zoning has been changed to industrial.
It's been rezoned.
Okay.
It has a special use on it. But those things I was mentioning were things that was met before they build a build, because
Yep.
those were conditions that were placed on the case.
So we have yet to see any rezoning documents. Those would be helpful if there are any special use, permits or special use conditions or any entitlements that outline obligations or other actions required. Those are all things that I'd look forward to providing input to better understand the process and timing, that we can put together an overall schedule and then identify what makes sense or what's a low cost but high reward in a readiness standpoint to go ahead and do prior to the CHIPS funding award. And then back to Matt's point, so Exhibit A, the legal description as a draft has been provided. Exhibit B, David, I don't recall if we had an Exhibit B draft.
We have the one you described earlier, which is the overall site itself.
Okay, as a holding
We have
spot.
yet to hone in on the two lots that you would see with the
Okay.
Renovation Centers. Some of that gets refined as TEM more clearly defines the footprint for their lots.
So Exhibit B, in other words, is a holding spot for what will be replaced with a exhibit that further defines and identifies the lot boundaries that TEM would be purchasing and acquiring. Exhibit C does not exist currently. That's a work in progress. Exhibit D does not exist currently. That's a work in progress. And Exhibit F has a few of the draft documents that identify the roads and highways and drawings, but those will also evolve. They'll include some narrative defining those scope of works that go with the plans that become attached.
Those are all at the back end. I attached them to the back end of the development agreement if you want to.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yes.
Well, these first 2 or 3 pages here, there's price per acre is under D on the first page, and it's also on page 2 or 3 back at page 3. In selling bits and pieces of this 270 acres up there, we've got public money tied up in it. How do we discover the right amount of money to bill these companies for the locations where they're gonna put a parking lot and a building and whatever it may be? How do we arrive at value for that acre?
At a for sale price for?
Yeah, for sales out of that 270 acres. One company may take 10 acres, one may take 30 acres, one may take, how do we arrive when you're just now starting out, because it may not be 270 acres may not be fully filled with a business, for maybe 5 or 10 years and may never get completely full. How do we recover our costs? Because they've been telling us all the time, we will recover our cost. Input that goes into it. Purchase price,
Right.
you got infrastructure's a big dollar amount.
Yeah, you can't sell all the key spots and then expect to, you can't just average the acres, in my opinion.
So, you're right. So traditionally, from a developer standpoint, a developer will develop an industrial park, let's say. And they'll have a master plan in mind. And within the market value for what that going rate is, cost per square foot for land on a industrial park for an end user that may be manufacturing, that's where typically land brokers or commercial brokers can run comparisons and assessments to come up with a cost per square foot range, and then that's negotiated through the sale. So that's traditionally how it's handled. Coffee County acting as the developer here, again, that's another thing I would like to better understand, the capabilities within Coffee County. If you guys have, certainly you guys own and operate land. Don't know if you have in-house real estate acquisition folks that may have access to that, or you may need consultant outside of Burns & McDonnell, outside of CFS, outside of the consultants you have so far engaged that do specialize in valuation of value of land with the intent of for sale as an industrial user. Those are the processes that would need to take place.
Hey, I know it's going to be a learning process for us all the way along, so we don't want to hit any stumbling blocks.
That doesn't sound like a bad idea to have professional advice myself.
And we're here to help facilitate, and in an administrative role, help identify that as well. But certainly we're not commercial brokers. We're not agents from a commercial real estate standpoint. But that would be a consultant that would need to, facilitate that has that expertise, and they're brokering land sales left and right, and then within that umbrella, some of them specialize in industrial, and that's all. Some are heavy industrial, some light. That's the way I would suggest that takes place.
I don't know where you're at for sure on this. There's, under some of these headings, where it says exhibits and whatever it may be, there's one location here under 3 of the different categories where they've got the word reserve written there. What goes in that place of reserve? Is that just work in process, or?
Reserve.
Look like on page 7, section 4.05, reserved.
Oh, yes. So in other words, that's a blank spot.
I kind of assumed that, so that's just work in process yet to be filled.
It could end up having some language in there. A lot of times we leave some blank reserves until the document is a final draft for review, and then we remove some of those. It indicates that this is a draft document and that additional language may in fact need to be included within that section. So section 4, for example, is financing. So we do anticipate that this would still need some collaboration and might need some additional narrative in here to get to its final draft.
Yeah, 4.05, actually. That word's in there 2 or 3 more times.
Yeah, some of that, even in the final, may revert to not use, because the concern when you have a document with multiple iterations and reviews is that ultimately if you delete a paragraph, it renumbers all the subsequent paragraphs, and that can be problematic if you're comparing multiple versions.
Right.
And so, in this case, there's not a 4.06 after it, but an example would be 5.04 does have a 5.05 after. And what you don't want to do is end up in a conversation where we're like, well, it used to be 5.05, but we deleted 5.04, so now it's 5.04. So it's usually more straightforward to just say not used or reserved, and that avoids having the content having multiple paragraph numbers over different provisions. It's just kind of a document mechanics as opposed to specific to the.
More space if you need it, basically.
Or that, or like I said,
or
if
to
you
not
delete a paragraph, you don't always want to renumber every single.
Go ahead, Joe.
That's right. I think that was Matt that was talking. This document is a form, it's a relatively, I think this is a form that came from an SSM development agreement, and what that reference is, Don, is probably a removal of some language, and I think what Matt was talking about was, in lieu of making a mistake for any kind of cross-reference, we just put in reserve, because it was a provision that was pulled out, and then the likelihood of error could be greater by just proofreading it. So that's the only purpose. It's just it's a way of drafting.
Good. All right, thanks, Joe.
Sure.
Like I said, I didn't know for sure where you were at. Like on 103A, that's on page 2. The terms defined in the attached annex of definitions include the plural as well as the singular. What's that statement basically say?
So
Or will it play a part in the contract?
that's typically helpful in making sure that Coffee County is spoken as a plural organization versus a singular representative. So that's one example.
So instead of one company, it's more likely going to be 8 or 10 companies out there?
Or more importantly, for one company, that it speaks to the organization, including any authorized representatives, not a singular representative acting independently from the company.
Well, and Sam, you may be able to help a little bit too. Just I know from a legal standpoint, if you say plot in the document and then during the course of negotiations you include 2 plots, you wouldn't want to somehow create some legal conflict because it refers to plot in the singular, and you're in some sort of a dispute trying to say, well, that's only talking about the one plot. This is more of just a broad brush stroke saying that's not going to affect the impact of this agreement. If it started out as singular and we ended up with more than one, but we didn't change the singular form, the intent isn't to somehow invalidate the agreement because that didn't get updated. So this is very basic form language. It's not specific to this project. It's likely not even specific to the development world. It's just to avoid where you get caught up in some verbiage technicality and somehow it creates a major problem with the document because somebody forgot to update a singular word to plural words. Another example would be that there's 2 parties now at the end of the day that are buying the land, and you update the purchaser to the names, all of that, but somewhere it says owner and you forget to change it to owners. We don't want that to somehow invalidate the agreement or be problematic for language. So this is kind of a catch-all statement in that of saying, hey, look, if there's a conflict between singular and plural, we mean the same thing. And like Joe said, this is a form document, so we didn't insert this like, well, we intend that change. It's just foreseeing a potential problem, probably because somebody ended up in court over it, and say we're not going to have to worry about that.
So I'll start off on the first page and walk through. I wanted to jump to the exhibits because the exhibits are really what make most sense specific to the project and the development and the relationships. But back to the development agreement as a document. So recitals identify the real property in question and call out the exhibits that define the project site, and in this case being KSMC Industrial Park. And then it goes on to identify, the intent of which the project site to have a developer who is intending to purchase or acquire lots with the intent to design, develop, and construct industrial facilities. And then Article 2 is where it goes on to really define what that is in more detail outside of the recitals. And then Article 3, as described here generically, then further defines right-of-way improvements or other non-TEM improvements that would be considered right-of-way or infrastructure improvements. As you see D, there has that blank there, an anticipation of some work that then describes or creates that valuation of cost per acre. That's a blank there that would need to be filled in. And then the Article 1 is general definitions and rules of construction. This article doesn't speak to any particular project or technical specific items. It's more general commercial term definitions. And the annex of definitions is in the back of the document that further defines certain terms like project site versus project versus other uses of words. Some of the less technical stuff and more legal stuff that belongs in the development agreement. Where Article 2 is where more of the narrative, starts to develop. That's around the specific development agreement here. So the sale of the project site and development of the project. So this defines, again, the sales price anticipated, and then Exhibit C, as we talked about earlier, defines the expectations of the timeline and a project timeline for the scope of work, the budget, and the obligations. Talks about relationship of the county and the developer. Timing, again, that Exhibit D for the performance schedule. The more legal language here. Article 3 talks more of the non-TEM, non-fabrication, non-manufacturing fabrication improvements, the right-of-way improvements. And the exhibit called out here then would be the exhibit that has narrative defining the scope of work and the drawings that CFS will put together that go with that narrative to define those improvements. Right-of-way dedication and construction timeline, so any obligations to deliver those by a certain timeline, that's left there for us to make sure we're identifying those. Article 4 is financing, and that's everything we talked about on that spreadsheet. We'll jump to the spreadsheet here after we go through each of these articles that identify all the different projects and the funding options or opportunities for those. But this is the narrative form that we've gotten some input from Raymond James, and this will need to continue to be collaborated together with on the financing and any narratives that need to be included in here.
In that section 402, the improvements and common area infrastructure improvements costs. How do we go about the end users? Those costs, they'd be divided amongst all the users. I mean, how do we determine a cost when we're in the beginning stage? I mean, do we have a definite group of entities that are going to be involved, and how do you weigh their use of, say, wastewater or the basic roads around the infrastructure around there? How do we divide that amongst the different companies?
Right. So again, traditionally as a developer, then the property management or the association of a park would then manage and operate and maintain. So a lot of that is defined by the anticipated operations and maintenance forecast for taking care of your common areas, your landscaping maintenance, your street maintenance, all of that. And the way traditionally that is handled is there's typically an association fee or a membership or a buy-in fee for that these end users of each lot pay up front. So there's some upfront, buy-in, and then there's an annual year-over-year, membership dues that are paid, similar to what you would see in the residential side if you own a home in a tract that has a homeowner association fee, to simplify it. So very similarly, but that would also, lend itself to the expertise of commercial, industrial park or commercial development, property management companies that can help and guide with that.
Would it be, maybe I'm just wondering if, let's say, if there was a schedule that says, okay, we're going to enter into a purchase agreement or developer's agreement, first is our first task we need to lay out, and then we need to start a public building commission.
Yep.
I mean, is there, I guess what I'm saying is there steps we should just be following that could be put into a format, a spreadsheet, where we could say, okay, here's where we're at that part for us to better
absolutely
help you,
and we intend on
you
doing
help us, but yet at least we know, okay, we hit this milestone in the procedure, this is our next, and that way, for me, I could be thinking ahead that, hey, this is our next step, and what would be the best avenue, because during this conversation, I mean, a lot of these people that you're talking about, no, we do not have on staff. I mean, so do we create that staff, or do we just, for now, seek outside consultation for the Public Building Commission or, the land broker? I mean, there's some real estate agents around, but this is, I'm assuming way above that level. So, and are there communities like that, maybe Sam knows of a person that deals in this type of stuff, or maybe Matt knows land brokers that we could bring on for consultation, like we've got Fabian as far as the engineer, and
So I'll answer your question of the timeline and a list of activities. That is our intent for that Exhibit D as we're developing that timeline. So we've put all our focus on the technical side of it, on what it takes to build out this fabrication plant and manufacturing plant, because that's the longest lead build out. That's the main driving force for everything that is KSMC Industrial Park currently, as well as that has the main driver for all things relative being the CHIPS funding. So those were our primary efforts were placed. So where's lacking right now is everything that is on Coffee County's side for us to better understand any rezoning processes, any permitting processes, the processes to help define the valuation of the property, the association, park association, those are the biggest hole right now. So we're developing that, and we hope to have that here over to you guys pretty soon, but we'll need to work together to develop that as well.
I guess when I see Exhibit D, performance milestones, I'm thinking of actual starting road construction and, utilities, getting in, getting out, this and that type of stuff.
We want it to be comprehensive, because this is such a unique one, right? Without the grant funding, being such a driving force. If it were a private developer that said, hey, I'm liquid and I'm building this building, it may be more construction driven or development driven. But in this case, being unique, there's a lot of, question in relative to how much pre-award or post-award investment does it make sense. So in this case, where it's not necessarily pre-construction efforts, it's more administrative pre-planning efforts that are critical.
So that's in your performance milestones as well, everything I just mentioned?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And we do have a working draft schedule that has some of those as placeholders.
All right.
They're just our assumptions. And then again, our next step would be to work with you guys to better understand all of those and make a list of those Coffee County, by others responsibilities of these items or these activities that need to take place, like a commercial broker or realtor, real estate agent to help with the valuation of the property, like a consultant, TBD, to assist with the KSMC Industrial Park Association strategy, like rezoning, permitting, all of that stuff.
Okay.
So those are the front-end pre-planning activities that right now we just have a list with no durations and no direct ties to,
Okay.
that we need to work together on.
Okay. Like I say, I was just thinking actual construction and roads and they're not everything we just spoke about, but that's good to hear.
Yeah, and being that it's a development agreement, and it's not more of a construction agreement, it's not uncommon so that some of those performance drivers are proof of funding or more administrative type activities. And we'll have those defined in here, as well as within the narrative. So in section 4 here for financing, we can make sure that those narratives include things like that. Like any activities or actions required of Coffee County are contingent upon, TEM successful award of federal grant funding. Those are all the languages that we want to make sure that we're taking into consideration to protect, both sides.
So the developer's agreement would be contingent upon, because we have, I guess what I'm hearing is that, like, by June 30th, this needs to be kind of done and vetted.
In a way that is suitable for the parties to then begin negotiation for executing the agreement.
As to fill in the blanks later.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, if I could just.
Yep.
Okay.
To some to your point, the development agreement is really to, as Howell mentioned, is to give you the tool to really begin earnest negotiations with TEM from the county's perspective. These items that are the articles in the document are our hope to assist you all in putting parameters with blanks that begin that negotiation. For example, we may not know exactly what the building commission looks like, but if the commission agrees that's the right model to go forward, then let's put it in the agreement so it can be negotiated. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So we're just trying to make sure we get the elements in there and then assist you with that process of negotiation so that it gets expedited more quickly in front of TEM.
Okay.
Yes, so this would serve as the vehicle. Now, certainly, the valuation of the property could take longer, and those can be items that'll be mutually understood between the two parties, that this development agreement as it stands is agreed to in principle as the vehicle for which we're going to execute, and these blanks that need to take place and these activities that need to take place include the following. And it could be, valuation of the property, valuation of the assessment of, annual dues for the industrial park, so on and so forth.
I'll just go back to where my mind was headed. I hear this June 30th deadline to basically kind of approve this, but yet there's a lot of blanks to fill in. I'm not seeing them being done by then, so.
No.
It's an amended document as we proceed.
Correct.
Good enough.
But this document also, with the deadline of June 30th that we've been asked to work under, the framework does allow, frankly, TEM, when they're talking to the Department of Commerce, some ability to speak to a process that's actively moving forward with the county, if I'm making sense. It gives them more credibility in this process.
No, thank you for that, and.
Well, I was just sweating like, okay, we gotta come up with a price for this land all at once, and all this kind of stuff, but in the end, we don't. I mean, it's just,
No,
we get to fill in the blanks.
very helpful to clarify, because, the emphasis is to have something that TEM can respond to the Department of Commerce when and if the Department of Commerce calls and says, demonstrate to the United States government that you are prepared and you have a plan to execute this development and be able to produce these chips, this manufacturing process within a timeline. So that's where this document becomes a great bargaining chip for that.
Okay, good enough.
They're not suggesting by June 30th that this is fully entered into and signed off on.
Correct.
Okay, that's the way my mind was digesting it, okay.
Right.
And no, thanks for that clarity, and I apologize if I clarified that
It's okay.
in better,
We're good.
in a better way. But our intent is
Okay.
that towards the end of this month and probably the beginning of July, that we find, I think tentatively July 1st is what we're shooting for, to be here in front of you guys again, that a lot of work will be done over the next couple of weeks so that when we're presenting on July 1 in theory, this document that has been produced in a way that outline agreement is ready and with a list of activities that show assumed durations to get to a path for it to be negotiated between the two parties.
Good enough.
Very good.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Makes us feel a lot better too.
Sorry, I took you around the block and
No, that's fine, but it's
the
like.
scenic route.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
And maybe my mind went that direction and not yours, but, I just wanna make sure we're not scrambling to try to get something done in a timely fashion, holding somebody else up, 'cause that's,
I'm sorry.
I've been for this project since it started, so,
Yeah.
I'm excited, hopefully we get the
Yeah.
green light.
And again, I just want to further emphasize, if I overlook it, this document is a very critical, necessary document to show the Department of Commerce that
Even with all the blanks?
even with all the blanks,
Okay.
that the region and the private manufacturing fabrication end user owner have a plan and have a vehicle to execute upon that plan should they award the funds.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. So Article 5, assignments and transfer of rights, more legal agreements and ability for others to transfer rights or duties or roles of contracts. Article 6, construction of improvements. This is more just definitions, not necessarily defining scope of work, just definitions of activities. What construction improvements are, what permit obligations are, so on and so forth.
Before he goes on for the transfer of the rights, can we go back to that?
Oh, yes.
Real quick? I do have a question, because of our zoning, when we transfer certain things, the zoning permit, the special stays with the property, not with the developer. So
Good
in that
point.
section, does that have verbiage in there talking about all the permitting staying with the property, or is it laid out in a way that it does?
It's very generic right now, and as we, better define and understand any conditions that come with the zoning, like a special use or an entitlement expectations, then I think it definitely should have that language in here. Yeah, thank you for that. Great point.
The zoning, planning commission, zoning commission, they only meet 3 times between now and September 1st. And I know this is work in process, but Heidi, can you get everything done because you've got an important part in that.
Is there a portal that those are available?
I can email you.
Okay,
We don't have a portal.
okay. No worries.
The thing with being met for the zoning would be if there's a screening plan yet. I don't know if there's a screening plan yet. Doesn't sound like the lots are determined for the plating yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
So a couple of these we can't do yet because we're not to that point. but just wanna make sure that I'm still in the loop and still part of the process, so we don't lose these, because they were put as conditions in the case.
Absolutely.
I just don't wanna have something come up later and cause problems.
Well, and it may be appropriate just to attach those conditions.
Correct.
as another exhibit.
That would be my preferred method, is that creates another exhibit that speaks on any zoning activities or any, stipulations. You know, there's typically approval with stipulations or things like that, then we could define those in there, so that they're called out in an exhibit and not lost in the narrative. Yeah.
Does somebody need to be in your firm for these next 2 or 3 meetings? Would that be a plus, or is it necessary?
I think a good start would be, Heidi, is it?
Yeah.
I think a good start would be for us to have this wonderful introduction with Heidi and work together with her to better understand where you're at in the zoning or
Yeah, that
rezoning.
communication needs to be pretty close.
Yes, absolutely. Very good. That would be a start, and I'll lean on Heidi for guidance on if we need to be a part of any upcoming
It's the third
planning and zoning
Wednesday
commission.
of each month.
Okay.
And if we need to add a meeting to it too, we just may have to do it.
We would, yes, I would, on your guys' request, we can make meetings happen that are outside the scope of the third.
I'm glad you're here.
We are too.
That's right. So Article 7, use and operation of the projects, making sure, you know, again, back to zoning and intended use regulations of the property and the facility, that those are aligned. And then any operations and maintenance uses on the industrial park as a whole are defined. Any assessments for taxes and things like that are defined there. Defaults and remedies, that's all the bad guy stuff. If you leave, this was happened to you. Article 9, general provisions. These are more the legal commercial terms, not specific to the technical or improvements of the actual development. And then at the very end here, before the exhibits, annex of definition. So these are just defining the terms or some specific language within the agreement. So that's in principle, the outline of the development agreement. I'm going to hop over to the financial model that, in our last discussion, really started creating and defining some of those actions of Coffee County that were assumed, unless there's any other questions relative to the development agreement narrative.
No, we got that work in progress thing.
That's what it is, basically.
And maybe it said that in there somewhere and I missed it or didn't quite understand it, but I just.
I'll take that, that's on me.
My mind was going, man, there's a lot of blanks to fill in here.
Well, you might want to hand the big versions I see you have underneath there.
Yes.
Of the financial model.
Oh,
I didn't.
because you printed it out in.
No, I didn't. I was trying to figure out a way to print it
Ah.
out like that and beat me to it.
No worries.
If there's a copy of anything you think you need, I need,
Very welcome.
say. Or Carl.
So this spreadsheet, what we attempted to do is define the various projects and define, at least in principle, a financial model that's understood as a financial model to fund that project. Not necessarily that it will be the financial model that funds that project, but we started with the utility infrastructure projects, and then some of the infrastructure off-site and on-site projects, and then the facility. So we'll start off on the top here, water. So with the water, it's assumed through our various conversations, collaboration with Wholesale 12 and Rural Water District 3's consultant, that there's necessary needs to expand the capacity at Wholesale 12's facility, and then install a main distribution line from Wholesale 12 to Rural Water District 3, and from Rural Water District 3 to the KSMC Industrial Park. So in those discussions and working in collaboration with Raymond James, the financial model that was understood as a vehicle for funding would be that each of these districts, Wholesale 12 and Rural Water, would issue their own revenue bonds to fund their capital improvements. And the anticipation of that is that they are selling water eventually down to the end user, in this case being TEM at first, and then other, industrial end users that would come about to the industrial park. Wholesale 12 would sell to Rural Water 3, Rural Water 3 would sell to TEM. So TEM would have to enter into a usage agreement or utility agreement with Rural Water 3, and that's the vehicle for which that would be funded. Questions on the water? And anything else I may have missed?
We're headed right, we're good.
Burlington.
We're still talking about them for secondary.
Okay.
We're still looking at Public Wholesale 12 as the primary, and Burlington as the secondary.
Okay.
We got some other things, we get some bridges across along the way too.
Okay.
No, thanks for that. And we did reach out to Burlington Water as well.
Okay, good.
So we have reached out to them. And again, this is just identifying a source,
Okay.
not necessarily the source.
I see.
And we're open to whatever the region has to offer.
Okay.
Relative to gas, Kansas Gas is who has been the most responsive to assist us with developing a potential source. And that source right now looks like it goes through Southern Star and would create a T-line extension of roughly 4.5 miles. And they put together a capital project total cost budget, and they came up with roughly a 7-year usage agreement, utility agreement, that TEM would have to enter an agreement with them that would justify the gas company making those improvements on the front end. So looks like they would make those, they would invest in the improvements on that use agreement, banking on that use agreement with the end user.
So at the right hand of that line on Kansas Gas, or it says may need some upfront LS financial support from Coffee County and that star is over here under TEM, enter into a usage 7-year agreement.
Yeah, so in other words, and that, thank you for that, that's a general statement. Not certain whether that would be the case or not the case, but I think Coffee County should be prepared should a private entity come and say, since I'm the first one in, these capital expenditure costs on the utility infrastructure side, exceed the standard rate agreement on a 7-year use agreement or any utility agreement. And so the utility company may be looking for some cash up front, in anticipation of that, whether TEM is in the position to be able to front load that cost or seek for some assistance by way of either Coffee County or the state of Kansas or others. I think it's something that's worthy of being prepared for. So that was the intent of our statement there,
Okay.
that there may need to be some upfront, lump sum financial support that would have an agreement on how that's recuperated or reimbursed.
Okay.
Should that come to play. Not that TEM has told us that, but we're being proactive and a little smart about it and make sure that there might be
preparation,
a scenario, whether it's that particular scenario or another scenario, that there may need to be some assistance on the front end costs.
Okay. Thank you.
On the power side, Evergy has been engaged for identifying different sources and different phases, temporary power for the initial construction and initial phase of the facility. The Evergy will need to have a substation built within the industrial park, and there's a transition line extension that's anticipated for 24 miles that would need to be as part of the full, mature, developed industrial park that would also be needed to provide the amount of power that's anticipated. And that again would also be a model that is funded by Evergy in whichever vehicle they choose to fund, with the anticipation of a purchase power agreement or utility agreement executed with TEM. And TEM has engaged them. We have been collaborating with Evergy, so that is a work in progress.
I was really surprised that that power didn't come from a connection at Wolf Creek or something, with all the lines coming in there, but I guess the power company decides where that's best to come from, I guess.
Right. So those are the utility side. Off-site, civil off-site roads and highways, primarily US 75 and Old 50 Highway. Those improvements, and Saban may be able to speak more on that vehicle for a financial model. We, as a general statement, have State of Kansas by way of KDOT in a shared cost model. Now, whether that's a 90-10 or 80-20 or however that develops, Saban has kind of been leading the efforts on that. Anything to add there, Saban?
Nothing that I haven't shared with you guys from last week. That, you know, our goal now that you've given us the green light is we can move forward with some discussions with KDOT. In looking at their programs, we are looking at multiple cost share programs, as well as they have an economic development program that could fund up to 100% of improvements on US 75 on Kansas state routes. Old 50, we have programs that the county has used before, same with Leach Road and Links Point. So we'll begin that process of now getting into those details.
Okay.
There was some discussion about a roundabout. Is that still under discussion up there, 7550?
At least from the traffic study model that we've created, it's not needed. It will actually, not to get too much into technical details, but traffic roundabouts really need a kind of proper balance of traffic in both directions or all directions to be most effective, and you don't really have that even in the growth situation.
Highway 50 wouldn't have near what 75.
Right now, the traffic study that we want to take to KDOT calls for traffic signals at US 75 and Old 50, and a traffic signal at the main entrance to the KSMC site at Old 50. Now, there would also be turn lanes. Those intersections will have significant improvements. At least right now, we're looking at significant improvements on US 75, north and south, because you'll have turning movements and you'll have truck traffic. So, but we need to take that to KDOT now, let them vet what our information is sharing, and then they may have some thoughts on the solution, and we'll work from there.
And specific to the industrial park, we'll call it on-site public roads within the industrial park. You see our assumption on a financial model. DeKalb County, through a general obligation bond, funds the capital capital expenditure costs for those projects, for that. The wastewater treatment facility, this was the one in reference to a sewer district that would be stood up by Coffee County, understanding that there was a need for a water treatment facility in the surrounding area, that there was anticipation that would service not only the KSMC Industrial Park end users, but others in the surrounding area. So that sewer district then could be formed and GO bonds issued and potentially become a revenue generating asset for Coffee County as well. So
Just
again,
real quick, we'll be probably looking at mechanical treatment plant instead of the bin like we had talked about in past months. Looking at wastewater treatment system of mechanical plant instead of review.
Okay.
in similar fashion, the common area improvements, through, certainly there's a purchase and sale of the lots that helps offset some of that work or the cost to develop. And then in anticipation that the sale of those lots does not cover all of the development costs from the industrial park side of things, that a balance would be, funded by a general obligation bond, and then also the annual membership dues of an association. So we felt it was responsible to create a thought on its own, the KSMC Industrial Park Association, so that's either created, as a entity within Coffee County, or whatever the vehicle makes sense appropriately to have an industrial park association and develop the initial buy-in fees and the year-over-year annual dues that would be outlined within that association agreement and the CC&Rs. And then we spoke about it generally, but the public facilities that are anticipated, the EMS wellness facility, the daycare facility, and the training facility. So those here identifying PVCs as a potential vehicle or entity to be created and issue bonds for those projects, with the understanding that that PVC would then lease that property either back to the county on the public used and operated and maintained buildings, or leased back to a end user or operator in the sense of a daycare facility or a training facility that would be an asset or a potential revenue generating asset. And then, of course, defining the value for the lots that TEM would then develop for their manufacturing process. Those lots would be sold by Coffee County to TEM through a purchase and sale agreement. That would be an agreement outside of this development agreement that also still needs to be drafted up as well. And then anticipating future developments, either future fabs by TEM or other private developments that would be funded through same purchase and sale type agreement. And the TEM, one of their funding source, of course, being the anticipation of a CHIPS award and their private equity bonds that they would then utilize to fully fund their facilities. And again, this document is absent of overall budgets. We do have conceptual budgets for all of these projects, that those scenarios can be played out so you can start to understand magnitude of potential costs on value of general obligation bonds. What does that look like? How much is it, for each one of these? But being that those are conceptual budgets and they're definitely work in progress and moving parts and pieces, we reserve those for a closed session to have those discussions and keep the focus here on the vehicle for what we assume in principle being the potential financial model. I'll pause for a moment and see, Joe, if you're still on, you've got anything I may have not have covered there and the assumptions on these general obligation bonds?
No, I'm still on, and there's a lot here, of course. With respect to, I want to touch base on a few items, but I kind of want to talk about the GO bonds first, and make certain that we have an understanding, as well as Public Building Commission, PBC, and then the, pre-award versus post-award, work. So real fast, in terms of the general obligation bond, first of all, the county doesn't have bond capacity to issue general obligation debt. And looking at this, and again, I've not studied this, it looks like what is being modeled is that the Industrial Park Association would issue general obligation bonds, and as opposed to the county. And at that point, they look at the assessed value of the district to size those bonds. But as you've heard, as the commissioners have heard me speak in the past, when we issue the jail financing bonds, we're going to issue our second series of bonds for about $10 million. The bond capacity out of the state of Kansas is you take the assessed value of the county at large and you get 3%. That could be your outstanding amount of the bonds at any given time. So the long and short of it is the bond capacity for the county to issue general obligation bonds is going to be, it cannot be part of this type of financing. And when we look at general obligation bonds, I had to assume that it defaults to the Industrial Park Association under the statutes, and that's capped at 25% of the assessed value of the district at large, of that district. But not that the stormwater number, sewers and stormwaters are not included in that 25%. So again, Howell team and Raymond James and myself and maybe Fisher Patterson and Wade will be looking at that modeling, but there may be some legal restrictions on issuing geo debt. It has to fit within the industrial park statute in order for this to be eligible, because again, we've used the capacity. And real quickly, if I may, Howell, before you move on to anything else, I don't know if you're going into executive session or not, but the pre-award versus the post-award work, the pre-award work, it looks like it's setting up a PBC, an industrial park association, and a sewer district, and as well as the rezoning. And Howell and others said that it's really administrative, and that's true. And there is some utility in getting these vehicles in place, whether it's with the CHIPS project or whether it's with some other county project. At one point, we talked about establishing a public building commission, and the public building commission could then help with the county hospital, enter into a lease with the county hospital or something like that. So there is utility greater than this CHIPS project for a public building commission. The industrial park as well as the sewer district may be limited specifically for the CHIPS project, but there's no harm, I guess there's no harm in getting that in place, showing good faith as somebody articulated to the federal government that, listen, the county's on board, here's what they're doing, and we have the structures ready to go. So that all is administrative, and we can assist in getting that done. Tying into, of course, the award, any kind of commitment, financial or otherwise, for the county. Post-award is important, and that's what the development agreement will kind of speak to. The final thing, if I may, when I look at development agreements, we look at really, as Howell mentioned, Articles 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Those are the things that we focus on. It's really what's being built, when is it being built? So the project is what's being built. When is it being built? It's the milestones. How is it going to be financed? And we've just gone through this financing that's the very early stages of it. And then unfortunately, what happens is if it's not built in accordance with the understanding of the parties. So that's generally when you start thinking about development agreements. The assignment provisions and some of the other, language that's included in there, it's more perfunctory and it needs to be in there because it just applies to the statute. But for the board, they need to kind of, I think, isolate it to what's being built, what is the project, when is it going to be built, how is it going to be financed, and what happens if there's a default. And again, the skeletal form of development agreement, I think, really will go a long way of not only negotiating with DEM, but also really showing good faith to the federal government if they make that award, we're ready to go. So I just wanted to mention those, and again, it's from my standpoint, it's early on in the stage because we were just seeing this, we've been talking about this for quite some time, but I just received this information just recently, and most importantly, we need to figure out the repayment on each of these financing mechanisms. I'm not so concerned about, you know, Evergy and the water, because they're going to be doing their own thing, but when it's county being at the forefront, whether it's an issue or setting up anything, what we look at is what is the county's exposure in the event if something doesn't happen, and we don't have that repayment schedule just yet. And again, as Joel mentioned, there's some numbers that are out there, but I think they're moving numbers. We don't know what the share will be with KDOT. So I just wanted to mention that because I just got back to my office and I was afraid I'd forget those if I didn't articulate those.
Appreciate that, Joe.
Okay.
Questions?
Excuse me. When the governor come down here a while back and pledged $150 million or whatever it was toward this project, I'm assuming that's contingent off the CHIPS money. Does anybody, you know where that stands, or?
I'll have a general statement, see if anyone else has any more particulars.
Or maybe it's not a fair question.
But yes, in general, Kansas has provided support, back-end support, you know, all contingent upon award, of course, of federal funds. There is an ask by TEM to the state of Kansas in a meeting scheduled tomorrow to ask for some upfront pre-planning support, financial support to allow some of these things to be advanced and expedited, primarily on the infrastructure, utility infrastructure, roadway, highway collaboration, and some of the preparedness or readiness for the Department of Commerce to show a better preparation when the Department of Commerce does call, if there's a plan in place. So that's where they're at right now.
So would it be fair to say that some of these things that are basically delegated Coffee County's expenditures, so to speak, that money could be used for that, or no?
Correct.
Okay.
Anything to add on that I may have missed relative to Kansas support?
Good.
Any other questions?
He's always got one.
I think he was more about the dollars and cents, which...
How about having more questions after you leave?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think going back in time, the hope and anticipation is the CHIPS grant is awarded and things move full steam. I guess there needs to be a secondary conversation about, as was mentioned by Charles many meetings ago, the county is the master developer of that site, whether they want to be or not. So is the plan to move forward and develop the site regardless? Because it's a site that you're talking about doing a lot of, you already have done a lot of work that would go potentially to the wayside to create an industrial development district, or whatever it's called. And is that only contingent upon TEM being given the award and moving forward on the CHIP side, or are you committed to developing that site regardless? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and then piggybacking on that, I mean, with the governor's pledge to help Coffee County, I mean, did it all just contingent on that CHIPS, or could we ask for assistance from the state to help us, be ready for, because I've said it many times that I-35 corridor, commercial or industrial businesses are coming down the pipe here. I mean, in between before you, so they did, I mean, you probably seen it today when you was driving down here, all the,
Right.
it's just moving this way, so.
No, absolutely, that's a great, question to pose, and my thought, regionally, is there a market, and is there a demand, is there a need regionally? And when you look at how these industrial parks become developed, it's based on that, right? There's typically a belief in the need to create a hub that connects east to the west or north to the south. And if there's a consensus that there is a need, you know, and that this particular development site fulfills a need or a market or a demand that connects east to the west or north to the south, and is that all around an industrial user, absent of TEM, you could certainly say, if TEM walks away tomorrow, what does Coffee County or the developer do? And is there a market demand for an industrial park, and is that more a warehousing, logistics, trucking, food and consumer products? What is it? But certainly, if there is a need, then, you know, these infrastructure costs and these infrastructure development conversations would need to exist anyway. And the asset is real. You own real property. The effort to identify the needs for a need and a solution for the critical utility infrastructure is of value. Because it's marketing to an end user. If TEM were to walk away and you need a data center end user, and Microsoft comes and says, hey, I'll put a data center there, but prove to me that you have sufficient power, water, and other infrastructure critical to our use. I would say today you can show a plan through everything we just demonstrated, Evergy Power, rural water 3 through wholesale water district 12. You can certainly demonstrate that at a minimum you've put forth enough effort to show that there's a potential to have a quote-unquote shovel-ready industrial park for big box users. And that's something that, you know, we can certainly help with a decision-making matrix to help you identify, you know, the viability behind, you know, moving forward with an industrial park. But the market and demand and the regional need, you know, is local, boots on the ground to determine what that need is, right? But that's a great point and a great exercise that I think is very much so an exercise that needs to take place. But the asset's there. You own the asset, right? Even if money were front loaded to the utility companies to get to a prelim engineering or a full detailed design, but stop short of the actual improvements for that infrastructure, you at least have permit ready, you know, solutions, not shovel ready, but permit ready solutions. Even if you were to move forward with this conceptual industrial park as it is now, you know, with CFS and others, to get to a permit ready design, those are marketable assets, you know. And when industrial users, big box users, look for property, they look, is it permit ready? Ideally, is it shovel ready? Can I buy that land, and can I be in construction within whatever duration they need to design and build their building? You know, is it shovel ready? And then next from that, is it permit ready? In other words, we have this industrial park that meets all the local jurisdiction and compliance requirements, has been permitted, you know, it just needs the permit to be pulled out. You know, then that's the next, you know, best thing of an asset for an end user, a big box, you know, facility to look for. Any other questions?
'Cause otherwise, I think I've hit all our points on our end, and hopefully it's provided some better understanding and value today.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate,
Whole bunch.
appreciate the update that you've given us, that you can give us now.
So did you wanna go into executive session about finance part of it?
I'd love to do that.
Okay. We got some verbiage for that, or?
Well, let's first explain why, for those who were watching, you've covered a lot of different things. Why can you not talk about the numbers out in the open? Because I think that's step one to determine whether you can go into executive session. I think you can, but.
Yeah, certainly. So the level of defined documents that create the level of confidence in a budget are not high. A lot of contingency still, a lot of conceptual still, and they're absent of understanding of the details of agreements. So last thing we want to do is have numbers that are out there in the public eye that are conservative and have contingencies and have, you know, potentials for major swings. We'd like to use them as a vehicle to understand potential magnitudes of bonds and things like that to prepare for. But certainly there's a lot more that needs to be advanced for those numbers to become numbers that can be used for public, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I might also add that some of the information in here is associated with some private cost funding solutions, which they would consider to be business confidential, that would not be appropriate to have.
Related to PEM?
Yeah.
So that's where I was hoping to go with it, because it's,
the business confidential information for private entities.
we had EMP in here earlier, and they are not able to talk about and articulate things that are in their application. I would assume some of the numbers that you're talking about related to PEM are also potentially tied to that same subject matter, which are sensitive in a way where if they're included within the application, my understanding is they cannot be publicly disseminated at this time. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
Sam, you agree with that? I'm just trying to make sure we go in under a...
I do. I think you have it covered here.
And who all would you, I guess the reason I want to know who all is because if only about 2 or 3 of us need to leave, then there's no sense in about 12 of us parading downstairs. Is that okay to remain here, or?
I mean, you can have an executive session wherever you want.
Well, I agree, but I mean, if it's gonna be with the commission and you and Sam and everybody from Burns and Mac and Carl and Sabian, then it just leaves about 4 people to leave the room. So, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
That's where my mind was headed instead of a...
Yep, and this would be...
Of course, the guys at the security bench there would, you know, get a kick out of us all hurrying down.
For the umpteenth time.
They think it's kind of funny anyway that we're getting our stuff in.
That's our reason I mentioned that.
Yeah, no, saying here's fine. And it would be under financial affairs of an organization related to confidential financial figures related to the CHIPS application.
Correct.
I see Brad's been typing.
I'm trying to guess what you're gonna say.
But you've been doing quite well. You picked up on it long ago and just started.
Well, if you wanted to say something different than that, because I don't know who all you want in.
That's why I asked who all you'd want in. Howell, I'm assuming Sam and your team as well as
Yeah.
Carl and Sabian?
Correct.
So it'd be Sabian, Carl Lee, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe by
Matt.
phone?
Oh,
Joe by phone.
Matt, I don't know your last name.
Carpenter.
I should know.
Who are you with, Matt?
Burns McDonald.
So, well, and Matt Carpenter.
Nathan Benjamin.
Burns McDonald.
What was the other one? I'm still typing.
Nathan.
Benjamin.
Yes.
And Howell. Right.
Yeah, he's already there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sam Green.
Joe, Sean. Joe, you still there?
I am Wade, yes.
Okay.
And you got Sam Green.
Sam Green, who's Sam Green?
He's with Fisher Patterson.
Sam Green.
Gotta make sure we get it all right. I mean, are you guys okay with remaining here?
Oh, yeah.
Or
You don't need any more steps today?
Do I?
You don't need any more steps today?
Not today, we're gonna.
I'm just
No, I'm
thinking,
kidding.
that room might
We
be
wouldn't
kind
be-
of small down there, huh, Sam?
It could, yeah, a little stuffy.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys.
I did shower today.
I thought you were letting me have my office back.
Yeah, you can have your office back, Heidi.
How long?
For now.
How many
For now.
minutes?
How long you want?
Oh, what's a good standard?
15?
15?
Is that long enough for you?
It's long enough for me. It's a matter of how many questions you guys have.
Better go 20 minutes.
So that's fine.
I'm afraid
Don will
we
have
did
5 minutes worth of questions for you.
I'm afraid if we did 15, we'd just have to come back in.
I know it. Yeah,
We wouldn't be moving. Yeah, I was, you're right.
Okay, so need a motion. Are you ready, Brandon?
So I got motion to enter into executive session for 20 minutes at whatever time, 2:55 or something.
To include each of the commissioners, Councilor Wade Bowie, Joel, Matt Carpenter, I cannot pronounce your last name,
Canchola.
Canchola, Matt Carpenter, Nathan Benjamin, and Burns McDonald, Sabian Yanez, CFS, Sam Green and Fisher Patterson, Joe Serrano by telephone, and Carl Reed to discuss data relating to financial affairs or trade secrets of a corporation regarding the CHIPS application under Kansas Open Meetings Act, KSA 754319, B4 to at, so I need a motion.
I'll move.
I'll second that.
Steve moves, Wade Thompson seconded. Any discussion, anything else anybody want to add? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. We will remain in this room. We will go in at 2:55. For 20 minutes. Thank you, girls. I'll let you shut that door for us, Brad. You said there's a time delay on that switch?
What, did they move on?
Yeah, all in
Yeah,
favor,
go
say-
ahead.
yeah.
Just 6 seconds or something.
Okay.
That way or that way?
You gonna guard the door for us, Brad?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a glass. And come out.
That's all I had, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Very informative.
We're just fortunate to have you guys on board with us. Thank you for letting me borrow your
Yeah, no problem.
laptop there.
Glad it worked out, because we had some issues, as you know.
I think this is your mouse, right?
Yeah.
Bill. I gotta go through a lot of paperwork. Oh, my word.
I ain't cleaned this in a while.
Again, I really can't thank you guys enough for agreeing to do a work session on this. Very enlightening, and like I say, maybe it said it somewhere in there that we had more time than June 30th, but I wouldn't see it. So. I just saw a lot of blanks, a lot of empty pages. Wait a minute.
We're excited to be, transparent with everything going on. There's a lot of different discussions with us, make sure you guys are informed of all the work that's being done.
Awesome.
And,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
thank you.
it's a great step towards that, I think.
I know we can't attend probably every Zoom meeting you have, but it's nice to know you're having them and have a chance to attend it. But, you know, some of us run secondary businesses, so it's a little hard to make every dog and pony show, but being updated and where things
Sure, they're being very demanding about it. I mean, set the timelines and holding people accountable.
Good.
They've done a great job.
Good deal. Glad to hear it.
No, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate all your time.
Anybody got any more questions? Anything else they want to add?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Do you guys wanna end up getting your spot on the agenda for the next time you're here? So it's already designated in advance?
July 1.
Correct. July 1?
Yeah, we'll just have to give you an estimate of how much time we need.
Any information
You want
from them
after
to try to make our
Same
decision.
timeline?
Let's do the 1 o'clock.
You're probably
Yeah.
coming in from
Phoenix.
Phoenix, so.
Let's do that 1 o'clock afternoon.
1:13.
1:13.
1:13?
Are you flying back tonight?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit in the meeting with the state of
Oh,
Kansas
yeah.
and then, head out tomorrow night.
And you watch out for the deer.
I'll watch out for
Thank you for the warning,
the
Dave.
Right.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Actually, the PEM folks have asked me on behalf of you all to sit on that meeting with Captain tomorrow as well.
Thanks.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Joe. Do you have anything else?
I do not. Thanks for letting me join by phone, Wade. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. We'll be in touch.
Talk to you soon.
Glad you're here, Joe. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Talk to you guys soon.
So you want to put them at 1 o'clock on July 1st? Another work session?
I think it's more beneficial to do a work session. That way, like I say, we're not
Or you
pressing anybody for, well, the next guy's at 11:30, and be not worried about being behind on schedule, or, I mean, are you okay with that? Sam?
Yeah. I don't know where you're going.
Huh?
We'll make something work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That works.
Carl, you got anything else you want to add for today?
I just want to say Brendan McDonald's been great.
Okay, good deal. Good deal.
Thank you for bringing him on board.
Yeah.
I don't know what heading we go under.
You guys need anything else from me?
Yeah, I think Mr. Thompson's wanting an executive session with you and the board. Yeah. But I don't know how to deem it. I'm sorry, I don't know how to.
Correct thing. either.
Attorney-client communications?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Yeah, in a nutshell, yeah, pretty much.
I think 15 minutes would be enough.
Yeah. So,
Are we going downstairs or stay here?
we'll go downstairs. It's a larger parade, or a smaller parade. Everybody laughs at.
Did ask what you were doing up here. You guys scared them off. Downstairs.
That would have been a long line, wouldn't it?
It would have.
It might have looked pretty comical.
So 15
You like all
minutes?
them clowns getting out of that Volkswagen.
Is that long enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Need a motion to enter an executive session with the board and Sam Green and Fisher Patterson for, what do you call it?
Attorney-client communications.
Attorney-client communications.
I'll move. I'll second.
How long? 15 minutes. Any discussion?
Who moved and seconded that, Mr. Chairman?
Move second.
Yeah, them guys over there, sorry,
Guys on the.
I was still talking.
Sorry, I'm just getting ready.
For 15 minutes, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will go in at 3:23 for 15 minutes. We'll kick Heidi out one last time today.
That's what I do. I can't stand not doing it. Okay. They did hang
We are back, no action
off with
taken.
us and stuff, they were on.
Lost one. Look at that, round table it.
I'm very much in favor of doing something that doesn't involve me typing very much.
Okay. Do you know if you got anything for round table?
I don't know, I have a note here that says we'll start going over budget workbooks in July,
Yep.
and that the auditors will be here July 22.
Other than that, that's about it. To your knowledge.
As far as I know, we'll do what time?
He said auditors will be here July.
July 22nd. The third week of fourth
We'll
week.
be going over budget books beginning July, so.
Yeah, we still got stuff in I don't have.
Yeah, there's. Still
Our
coming
two,
in.
they're flowing in, and
Yeah.
our two biggest budgets we don't have, we need to get, need all of them in.
They're on their way, I'll bet. Steve, you got anything for round table?
I don't.
Don, you got anything for round table?
No, I don't, sorry.
Mr. Thompson?
No, sir. Had enough of the table today.
Wait, before you got in here, I told them that we'll be ready to go over workbooks for budgets in July. Then the auditors will be here on July 22nd.
Okay.
And Dawn pointed out that we don't have a couple of our biggest budgets in it, so quite a few of them have.
You got anything for round table, Mr. Louis?
One thing, it was mentioned to me, and maybe it's worth, clarifying for future purposes, the meeting with Burns and Mac this afternoon, it was a work session on the agenda, but it's actually a regular agenda topic. So it might be helpful to just have a, not listed as work session historically is where you receive information and then you don't vote, you don't take action, you don't do anything like that. And let's say on Wednesday you want to have a work session, not a regular agenda. So you're having a work session, but no action is taken. Here you're flowing into or from the morning into the afternoon, and my impression is it's an afternoon where you have more time on the agenda to discuss whatever the topic might be, because taking action and doing things when it's considered a work session item probably is not the right terminology.
So it's a normal session, just.
An extension where you want more time.
The next time we'll just put them on the agenda for one instead.
Yeah, no, and that's why I wanted to make sure that it's probably better to do that than to word it the way it's been worded. It's just Burns and Mac, agenda topic, discussion of KSMC CHIPS application. And then whatever you do, whatever you talk about here, it's a regular agenda topic. You're already here, you're not recessing and coming back.
Okay, that makes sense.
Speaking of recessing, we'll be doing that today to come back tomorrow at,
It's a special
meeting.
Yeah, it's a special meeting.
That is at 9:30 tomorrow.
so it won't be a recess.
9:30.
I don't. So normally special sessions are set up after you've already recessed, you already have your next meeting set up, and we don't usually have an intervening meeting, so.
So we'll adjourn today then and reconvene tomorrow at 9:30?
for that one topic, and that was gonna be my next thing I brought up.
Okay.
We made sure that notice went out on Friday regarding that special session meeting agenda topic, which is what's required. As soon as you know, you do that. And, it is for that one and only topic.
Right.
So, and I talked to Dr. Wyatt, I don't know if there's gonna be a need to go into executive session, but it's on the agenda just in case, because of the mechanics of the CHIP application process, as you heard from, the representatives from EMP Shield. Certain things cannot be talked about. I'm not sure if the plan is to talk about something similar with Dr. Wyatt, but if the need arises, it has to be on the agenda so that you can cover it if you need to go into an executive session, so. Okay. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Okay. The employee handbook, do you have your version with you to reference?
Yep.
I think I took that one.
Page 20,
Page 20.
at the very bottom.
Overtime, compensatory time off.
Steve. No, I think that's technical. Talking about the overtime compensation.
Yes. So, right in that section, it says, the first sentence, it will be the practice of Coffee County to compensate non-exempt employees for hours worked in excess of the standard 40-hour work week with overtime, compensatory time off, comp time, in lieu of traditional overtime compensation. That statement was brought to my attention after this handbook was adopted. It's my understanding and recollection, the intent of the board was to allow the department to decide whether it was going to be comp time or overtime. So that statement, in essence, takes out the ability for overtime compensation. So with that being said, and then there were a couple minor edits, I contacted Angie and had the 200 versions of this that were going to be printed and bound stopped so this could be clarified and fixed, because otherwise it wasn't going to be right. And I didn't, I'll say I made what I'll call a command decision because I wanted to wait and get your permission, but I didn't want it to end up being printed because you didn't.
Right.
So I was not happy about having to do that, but it needs to be right.
Well, you know, we wouldn't want to print it with it being wrong, so that's.
But the intent was to have the department head
have the discretion.
have the discretion, yes.
Right.
So, you strike that, can you strike the whole thing, that whole paragraph,
Or did you already change it to?
Well, I have marked out as a proposal to strike out the words, it will be the practice of, and then have it say Coffee County instead of the word to, may compensate non-exempt employees for hours worked in excess of the standard 40-hour work week with overtime, compensatory time off, comp time, in lieu of traditional overtime compensation.
Reread it.
And then there's another section that just says overtime.
Here's one I didn't catch, I think it should be.
Yeah, so the section above references overtime, so also on page 20. So it talks about, the section above talks about overtime, and then the section below it takes overtime away. So
But you feel you've remedied it with changing that wording as you just spoke, correct?
I think so.
Okay.
And Don, you said you found something?
Well, I just looked at it briefly, and I don't think it's an issue. It's on mid-page 21 of the third dot down. Maximum of 80 hours,
That,
but in the parentheses, 40 hours
that's another thing I got brought up.
of comp time.
Yeah, that has to be
That
fixed.
needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I didn't catch that one.
Change to 40 or what?
I think our maximum number of comps 80, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's what's in the bracket should be 80 probably. Because it isn't classified as for one pay period.
I feel bad I didn't catch some of these things, but
Well, been over it and over it and over it. It gets
More times you
pretty
go,
easy to read over it after.
more times you go over it,
that
the more
time.
times you're gonna read over stuff.
Yeah.
That's the way I am.
I'm fine with it, as long as you're content.
and there are some page numbers that I noticed were off. So once I get that fixed, I think it should be good to go.
Okay.
Amazing as you get a copy being printed.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So you're gonna have that, where we approve it again.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be. So I think making sure it's right.
Yeah.
I think this is the version that's
You gotta go into a coma after you read that stuff about fit time and business.
I'm sure it all blurred together in 40 hours and 40 hours and 40 hours.
Yeah.
You want an executive session?
There's a county employee that I've got the notes in my office, I can go get it. A county employee that drove their personal vehicle to the training in Wichita. They drove their personal vehicle after requesting to use a county vehicle. They were all checked out, which happens from time to time. They went to Wichita on their way back. I don't remember whether it was a rock from a semi or something like that. Damaged their windshield to a point where their windshield, they couldn't have it repaired for a chip. They completely totaled the windshield. The request was made instead of running it through their insurance, which would require a deductible and probably impacting their insurance premium, that the county covered the cost. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of $943. Safe Light's already been out, replaced their windshield. I had the documentation. I asked for the email. The email was from their supervisor to them saying they've checked, there are no vehicles available. I just want to give you a heads up, one, to make sure there's not an issue if that comes through. I don't even think it's anything you want to run through the county insurance.
I don't. My own company either. So I just fix them.
Yep, I just fix it.
Okay. Thinking, outside of that, have an executive session.
You sure?
If you want, talk about something with me.
Yeah, when you go in and talk about your lawnmower.
No joke.
It was my grandmother's mower.
Need to put a power around and get some sheep or goats.
Back in 2003, when she bought it, it served the purpose.
Yeah.
Pretty big cat.
I used to give you static.
And it's still up and running, and it cuts, it just does it slow.
Yeah.
It is a nice old mower though. Well, I don't have anything for roundtable. You have anything more to add?
Not per
Instead of
se.
being around, Brad, make sure. Okay.
Just waiting for that.
So we do adjourn today to reconvene tomorrow, correct? At 9:30. Just so everybody knows that
Because tomorrow's a
special meeting with Carl Wyatt from TEM, would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you got anything you wanna add?
I do not, thank you.
We'll adjourn at 3:56.
Ta-da.